Amidst the peaceful wilderness and the winding river, a thought arises. Information is the ultimate weapon to take down an enemy, but it is also a double-edged sword that can backfire on you at any moment. An axe bites deep into a thick tree branch, sending wood chips flying into the air with a heavy chop. Zachary Atwood, a young man with messy black hair and an intense gaze, leans against a tree with a hatchet resting on his shoulder. He's dressed for the outdoors in a red button-down over a black tank top, reflecting on how a simple mention of a childhood camping trip has landed him a specific role today. Zach tosses a dry, brittle branch aside with a look of dissatisfaction, as it's terrible for the fire. He realizes that by opening his mouth, he's suddenly become the group's designated lumberjack for the trip. Carrying his hatchet through the sun-dappled woods, Zach admits to himself that being alone out here isn't so bad. He suspects his dad probably just bought their firewood from a store when they were kids anyway. Zach lets out a long sigh, his eyes narrowing slightly as he enjoys the momentary peace away from the others. He finds being the newcomer in a group of longtime friends to be a bit uncomfortable and draining. Back at the campsite, Tyler, an arrogant-looking guy in a teal shirt, shouts at the group while pointing at a collapsed tent on the ground. He's clearly frustrated, demanding to know who was responsible for the mess. David and his girlfriend, Izzy, step out of their trailer, carrying bags and supplies for the evening. Izzy tries to calm Tyler down, suggesting he's taking the vacation way too seriously and might just need a snack. The campsite is a mess of half-unpacked gear, with several chairs circled around an unlit fire pit. Tyler continues to fume about their late arrival and the lack of progress, while Zach stands further off by the woodpile. Hannah, Zach's supportive blonde girlfriend, offers a reassuring smile to the group. She tells them everything will be fine, emphasizing that Zach is actually quite skilled at this kind of outdoor work. Zach stops for a moment to wipe the sweat from his face, his expression focused and serious. He seems happy enough to pitch in and do his part for the group. Hannah watches as Zach swings his axe, splitting another large log with practiced ease. He tells her he's nearly finished with the current batch of wood. Tyler turns towards Zach and points a finger, calling him hatchetman with a dismissive tone. He tells him he's just in time to head back out and gather even more firewood for the night. The blade of Zach's hatchet whistles through the air in a sharp, controlled arc. Zach stares Tyler down with a calm, unbothered expression, even as the other man glares at him with clear annoyance. Zach just gives a subtle, knowing smirk and lets out a simple, sure, leaving Tyler feeling uneasy as his brow furrows in irritation. Tyler watches Zach's back as he shoulders his hatchet and heads back into the dense line of trees. Turning back to Hannah, Tyler complains that her boyfriend is far too intense for a casual trip. Hannah just lets out a light giggle, nodding that Zach can definitely get that way sometimes. Zach walks down a narrow, shaded path through the forest, leaving the noise of the campsite behind. He accepts that his focused nature is just part of who he is. He stops in a clearing and crouches down, beginning to gather small, dry sticks from the forest floor. Zach tosses a larger branch onto his pile, deciding that they don't really need a massive amount of wood for just a single night. As Zach steps through the underbrush, a sudden crackle of purple energy sparks around his boot. The ground beneath him begins to glow with an eerie, unnatural light. Zach freezes as his face is suddenly bathed in a vibrant violet glow. His eyes widen in confusion as the forest around him seems to distort. In an instant, the woods are gone, and Zach finds himself floating in a vast, swirling void of cosmic energy and distant stars. Zach looks around the dark expanse in total shock, his body weightless as he tries to make sense of the situation. A glowing blue holographic window blinks into existence right in front of him, announcing the initiation of a system and welcoming him to the multiverse. Zach reads the floating text with a look of disbelief, his mind racing as he tries to process the impossible words. Another system screen appears, stating that the scan of planet Earth is complete and that it has been identified as low-grade mass. Zach wonders if he's suffering from heat stroke or if this is all some bizarre dream. The screen informs him that due to its insufficient size, Earth is being merged with other planets. It details massive changes to the world's topography, random spawn points, and an upgrade to the local wildlife. Zach stares at the mention of upgraded wildlife and additional planets, his confusion growing as a final message confirms the activation of his link to the multiverse system. Still trying to rationalize the experience, Zach wonders if there was something strange in the brownies Izzy brought. He calls out into the darkness, shouting for Hannah and David, but his voice seems to disappear into the endless void. A sharp ding echoes through the space as a new prompt appears, announcing the initiation of incursions and the spawning of a herald. Zach tenses, sensing a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The system window turns a warning red, flashing an error message. It reveals that a herald is currently occupying the exact same physical space as Zack. A new instruction appears, cold and final. Zack must now roll for survival. Zack's eyes go wide, his brow furrowing as the reality of the situation starts to sink in. He repeats the words under his breath, wondering what it means to roll for his own life. Zack looks over his shoulder as a low, menacing hiss fills the void behind him. He breaks into a cold sweat, his heart hammering against his ribs as he wonders what he's supposed to be surviving against. A gargantuan, terrifying entity known as Herald Urkhaz manifests behind him, a demonic wolf-like beast wreathed in dark red energy. It towers over the young man, its glowing eyes fixed directly on him. Zack stares up at the massive, snarling creature in absolute terror, feeling completely insignificant in the face of such a monstrous power. Herald Urkhaz lets out a deafening, earth-shaking roar, revealing a maw filled with rows of jagged, razor-sharp teeth. A detailed system message explains the catastrophic power gap between the two. Urkhaz is rolling on a scale of 1 to 100,000, while Zack is rolling on a mere scale of 1 to 100. Zack's face is cast in deep shadow, his eyes reflecting the impossible numbers as he realizes the odds are stacked impossibly against him. Whoever rolls the lowest value will be erased from existence. A bright blue system notification hangs in the darkness, laying out the brutal reality of the gamble. The rules are absolute. Whoever rolls the lowest value will be wiped from existence. Zack's mouth hangs open as he stares at the screen, a cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. He can't wrap his head around how such a massive disparity in odds could even be possible. The difference between their ranges is staggering, making the whole situation feel like a death sentence. Zack shouts out into the void, trying to refuse the terms of a game he never agreed to play. The system completely ignores his protest, interpreting his exclamation as an acceptance of the protocol. A confirmation screen pops up, announcing that the roll has been initiated. 3 columns of holographic numbers begin to spin wildly in front of him. The mechanical whirring of the digital dice fills the silence of the void. Zack lunges forward and slams his fist against the glowing barrier, desperate to stop the process. He screams for the system to cancel the roll, but the numbers continue their unstoppable descent. The spinning blurs of blue light are no longer just a weird dream. They're his entire life on the line. Zack's voice cracks as he continues to plead for it to stop, his panic rising with every second. A sharp chime echoes through the darkness as the columns finally lock into place. The numbers stop at 096, signaling the end of Zack's turn. Zack stares at the result, his breathing heavy and ragged as the tension momentarily breaks. He realizes that a 96 out of 100 is almost a perfect score, the best chance he could have realistically hoped for. But the relief is short-lived as the screen shifts, indicating that it's now the Herald's turn to roll. Zack watches with a sinking feeling, knowing that even his high score is nothing compared to the beast's potential reign. The massive entity lets out a low, rumbling growl that vibrates through Zack's entire body. He stands frozen, dwarfed by the creature's overwhelming presence and certain that no roll will ever be enough to save him. A 6-digit column appears this time, and the numbers begin to blur into a high-speed spin. The sound is much louder and more aggressive than Zack's roll. In the face of death, memories of his life back on Earth flood his mind. He thinks of his father, regretting that he never even got the chance to say a real goodbye. He recalls his younger sister, Mackenzie, and the times he spent more focused on his games than on her. A wave of guilt hits him as he reflects on what a disappointment he's been as an older brother. The spinning digits are all that exist in the present, a cruel mockery of his past. The odds are so stacked against him, it's almost laughable. Zack wonders how long his friends back at the campsite will even notice he's gone. To them, he was just the guy who went to get some wood and never came back. He looks up at the towering monstrosity, feeling the weight of everything he's about to lose. It seems impossible that his entire existence is being decided by a single, unfair dice roll. The mechanical whirring intensifies, reaching a deafening crescendo as the spin reaches its peak. Every part of Zack's being screams that this shouldn't be how it ends. Something inside him snaps, and Zack's fear is replaced by a cold, sharp resolve. He tightens his grip on the handle of his hatchet, refusing to just roll over and die. He stares down the spinning numbers, his gaze steady and defiant. Probability doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is the will to survive. Zack glares at the Herald, his eyes burning with a sudden, fierce light. He silently demands just one chance, one single opening to live. A final ding rings out as the spinning numbers stop dead. The Herald's result is 000091. A blue notification box flashes with a message of CONGRATULATONS against the dark sky. The impossible has happened. Zack stands stunned, looking back and forth between his roll of 96 and the beast's pitiful 91. He can't believe he actually managed to win. The herald lets out a final, agonizing roar as its result is finalized. A screen confirms that Urkaz has rolled a 91 and that no rerolls are available. Violent red and blue energy suddenly erupts from the herald's body, tearing through its form with a loud crackle. The beast is being shredded into nothingness. Waves of raw power spiral out from the dying entity, washing over Zack and bathing him in a blinding light. He stands his ground as the cosmic energy surges around him. Zack lets out a pained scream as the massive influx of experience and power from the herald's death floods into his system. Veins of glowing purple energy ripple across his skin. The system declares the official result. Urkaz has been vanquished, and Zachary Atwood will continue to exist. The impossible victory is complete. With the incursion error resolved, the screen calmly notes that standard protocols are now resuming. The violent energy begins to settle. A flurry of level UP notifications pop up one after another, stacking over each other in a frantic blur. The system begins the process of spawning Zack back into the physical world. Zack's unconscious body is deposited back onto the soft forest floor within a pillar of light. Only then do the branches he tossed earlier finally hit the ground with a dull thud. He lies there for a moment, let out a weak groan as his consciousness slowly returns. The peace of the forest feels alien after the chaos of the void. Zack pushes himself up from the dirt, his head spinning as he tries to remember exactly what just happened. He looks around the familiar clearing, trying to ground himself. He rubs his chest, half expecting to find a wound, but he feels physically stronger than ever before. He realizes he needs to hurry back to the others and make sure they're okay. Looking up at the sky, he freezes as he sees the clouds tinted a strange, bruised purple under two suns. The once familiar horizon has been replaced by something completely alien. Zack stands alone in the center of the woods, a look of pure confusion on his face. He whispers the question to himself, wondering if he's even on the same planet anymore. Another system window confirms his fears, explaining that Earth has been merged with other worlds due to its insufficient energy mass. The planet as he knew it is gone. He looks at a nearby tree, which has grown to an impossible size with thick, glowing blue vines coiling around its trunk. Strange, glowing butterflies flutter through the air, completely undisturbed by his presence. Zack runs a hand through his hair, his mind struggling to accept this new reality. He desperately hopes it's all just some vivid, bizarre dream brought on by the brownies Izzy brought. He starts to walk back in the direction of the campsite, his steps hesitant as he tries to navigate the altered terrain. Every familiar landmark has been twisted into something new. Suddenly, a sharp rustling sound comes from the bushes behind him, and Zack immediately tenses up. He wheels around, hatchet ready, as he realizes he's no longer alone in these woods. Zack narrows his eyes, his gaze fixed on a clearing through the trees. He realizes he hasn't wandered nearly as far as he thought, and the campsite is just ahead. The silhouette of a trailer comes into view, its familiar shape a beacon of normalcy in the strange forest. Smoke rises from a fire pit, suggesting the others have already started the evening festivities without him. Zack steps into the clearing, hatchet still in hand, and calls out to his friends. He's eager to tell them about the strange things he's seen, completely unaware of what is waiting for him in the shadows. The campfire crackles softly, but the usual sounds of laughter and conversation are missing. An eerie, heavy silence has settled over the entire campsite. Zack's boots crunch on something on the ground as he surveys the area. A folding chair lies on its side, and a spilled water bottle and open bag of marshmallows are scattered across the dirt. A cold sweat breaks out on Zack's face as the realization of something wrong sets in. He stands frozen, his eyes searching the shadows for any sign of his friends. A massive, purple-skinned beast with jagged white spines is hunched over a metal crate. It tears into whatever is inside with a sickening, rhythmic crunching sound. The creature turns its head, revealing a snout filled with razor-sharp teeth and eyes that glow with a malevolent red light. Thick, dark saliva drips from its open maw. The beast lets out a deafening roar that echoes through the forest and lunges forward. Zack barely has time to react as the monster's massive shadow falls over him. The purple hound dashes across the campsite with terrifying speed, its claws digging into the dirt. It moves with a predatory grace that defies its bulky, muscular frame. Zack's instincts take over, and he tightens his grip on the handle of his hatchet. He prepares himself for the collision, his knuckles white with the effort of holding on. He swings the heavy blade in a desperate arc, catching the beast mid-leap. A spray of dark, viscous blood splatters across the clearing as the metal bites deep into flesh. The momentum of the strike carries through, and Zack follows up with a powerful, sweeping blow. The beast is sent tumbling through the air, its snarls turning into high-pitched yelps of pain. Zack's face is flecked with the monster's blood as he grits his teeth in a mixture of exertion and shock. The physical feedback of the hit tells him he's much stronger than he should be. The creature slams into a nearby tree with a violent crash, shattering wood and kicking up a cloud of debris. Zack stares at his hands, struggling to comprehend his own newfound power. Memories of the Blue System interface flash through his mind, the greeting to the multiverse and the strange gambling mechanics. He starts to realize that the nightmare he experienced was real. The memory of the gargantuan Herald Urkhaz looms over him, a reminder of the sheer scale of the changes Earth is undergoing. The encounter in the void was no dream. He recalls the spinning columns of the dice roll and the impossible odds he somehow managed to overcome. The system's intervention is the only explanation for why he's still alive. Zack winces as he grips his bloodied shoulder, the sharp sting of the wound anchoring him to the present. Every ache in his body is proof that the world has fundamentally changed. He frantically calls out for Hannah and the others, his voice echoing fruitlessly through the empty woods. The campfire is the only sign that anyone was ever here at all. He sprints past the trailer, his heavy footsteps thumping against the ground as he searches for any sign of life. The realization that he is completely alone begins to sink in. The purple beast scrambles back to its feet, snarling as energy flickers around its spines. Zack realizes that despite his strength, the creature's speed is still a major threat. The monster lunges again, charging headlong to snatch him. Zack narrowly evades the collision, rolling to the side as dust billows around him. He takes a moment to observe the monster's movements from behind the cover of the RV. He notices that while it's fast in a straight line, it struggles to adjust its course once it's at full speed. Zack's eyes widen as a plan starts to form in his mind. He realizes he can use the creature's own momentum against it if he times his move correctly. He takes a deep breath, focusing every ounce of his attention on the snarling monster. This single gambit is his only chance to end the fight before he's worn down completely. The monster shakes its head to clear the daze from the impact. Looking at those bulging muscles, Zack knows one thing for sure. If he gets caught in its grip, it's game over. Zack repositions himself and initiates his plan. He waves his arms and shouts at the beast, drawing its attention toward the edge of the campsite. He needs it to commit fully to its next attack. The purple monster roars and charges forward, its gaze locked onto its target. It gathers speed, becoming a blur of muscle and rage as it closes the distance. At the very last second, Zack pivots on his heel and dives out of the way. The creature's forward momentum is too great for it to stop, and it continues hurtling past him into the brush. The beast's red eyes are wide as it realizes it has overshot its target. The sound of its heavy paws thudding against the ground rhythmically counts down the seconds of the chase. Zack leads the monster on a high-speed pursuit through the thick brush of the forest. He uses the dense trees to his advantage, forcing the creature to navigate around obstacles. He leans against a tree trunk, gasping for air as he tries to ignore the blood soaking through his sleeve. The adrenaline is the only thing keeping him on his feet right now. Zack finds a tactical position near a massive, upturned root and prepares for the creature's next approach. He knows the fight is far from over, and he has to end it soon. The heavy, rhythmic thuds of the beast's footsteps signal its arrival long before it comes into view. The forest floor trembles with the weight of the charging monster. Zack narrows his eyes, focusing purely on the sounds of the beast's approach. He pushes aside every other thought, letting his survival instincts take full control. He looks down at his hand, noticing a slight tremor as he grips the axe. He questions if his body is starting to give out under the immense pressure of the hunt. Blood drips steadily from the metal head of the hatchet, staining the grass below. Zack realizes that the shaking in his hands isn't born from a fear of death. The sound of the beast crashing through the undergrowth grows louder, signaling its inevitable return. The air is thick with the scent of pine and ozone. He squeezes the handle of the hatchet with both hands, his knuckles white and veins bulging. The trembling is replaced by a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. Zack steps out from his cover and beats his fist against his chest, letting out a primal scream of challenge. He dares the monster to come and try to finish him off. The beast leaps from the shadows, its claws extended and a purple aura radiating from its body. It lets out a final, earth-shaking roar as it prepares to close the distance once and for all. Zack ducks beneath the beast's massive jaws, the wind of its movement whistling past his ear. He moves with a newfound agility, his body responding to his will faster than ever before. The purple beast slams into the earth with a bone-jarring impact, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. Its momentum carries it past Zack, leaving it momentarily vulnerable to a counterattack. The previous impact leaves it dazed. The creature thrashes violently, its muscular limbs plowing through the campsite floor. It struggles to regain its balance, its movements becoming increasingly erratic as the fight drags on. The monster lets out a high-pitched, piercing roar, its red eyes wide with a mix of fury and pain. Thick, dark saliva sprays from its snout as it prepares for one last desperate stand. Zack raises his blood-slicked hatchet high, the metal catching the faint light filtering through the trees. His expression is one of grim determination as he commits to the finishing blow. He brings the axe down with a sickening thud, the blade burying itself deep in the monster's thick neck. A fountain of dark blood erupts, coating the ground and Zack's arms in a warm, metallic-scented spray. One of the beast's jagged white spines snaps under the force of Zack's relentless assault, the sound echoing through the quiet woods. Bits of bone and flesh are sent flying into the air. Zack unleashes a flurry of savage slashes, his mind flashing back to the impossible odds he just survived in the void. Compared to the cosmic entity he faced before, this creature is nothing but a nuisance. The beast lets out a final, gurgling scream as its strength fails, the light in its red eyes beginning to dim. It collapses under the weight of Zack's fury, its body a broken mass of purple muscle. With a primal shout of defiance, Zack delivers a crushing downward strike that ends the creature's struggle once and for all. He declares his victory to the empty forest, his voice raw with newfound power. The axe slices through the monster's remains with a sharp whistle, leaving a trail of blue light in its wake. Zack's physical capabilities are undeniable now, a stark contrast to the man he was only hours ago. He continues the motion, his movements fluid and precise as he carves through the last of his enemy. The air is thick with the scent of iron and the fatting energy of the slain beast. A final, clean slice separates the monster's head from its body, sending a fresh wave of blood across the clearing. The silence that follows is sudden, heavy, and absolute. Zack stands over the carcass, his face shadowed and his left eye burning with an otherworldly blue glow. The spectral image of Harold Urquhart seems to hover behind him, a haunting reminder of the power he now carries. A translucent blue screen materializes in the air, notifying him of his reward, 100 Nexus coins. He leans on his knees, his breath coming in ragged, painful gasps as the adrenaline begins to fade. A crimson handprint stains the rough bark of a nearby tree, marking Zack's path as he stumbles back toward the center of the camp. He moves with leaden steps, his strength nearly spent. Blood drips steadily from his fingertips and onto the forest path, leaving a grim trail behind him. Each step is a struggle against the growing exhaustion and the shock of his new reality. His boots crunch on the blood-spattered grass as he reaches the trailer, his voice barely a whisper. He calls out for Hannah, his heart heavy with the fear of what he might find. The blood-stained hatchet falls from his limp hand, landing with a dull thud on the forest floor. He no longer has the strength to hold it, his body finally reaching its limit after the fight. He reaches out a trembling, bloody hand and leans against the cool metal side of the white RV. He asks the empty campsite if anyone is there, his words swallowed by the vast, uncaring woods. With a weary groan, Zack's back slides down the side of the vehicle until he's slumped against the ground. He mutters to himself that they need to leave, even as his consciousness begins to slip away. He sits alone in the center of the abandoned campsite, a lone figure in a world that has become unrecognizable. A long trail of blood marks the path of his struggle, stretching out behind him like a dark ribbon. High above the altered horizon, a distant moon hangs in a sky filled with strange stars and a brilliant, glowing portal. The thought of home feels like a distant, fading dream in this new multiverse. From high above, the campsite is a tiny, insignificant speck in a world that has been consumed by a massive, cosmic phenomenon. The Earth is gone, replaced by a sprawling, dangerous new reality. Zachary Atwood opens his eyes, squinting against the harsh morning sun filtering through the leaves above. The forest canopy is a blur of bright white light and deep green shadows. Zach sits up with a groan, rubbing his head as a sharp pain throbs behind his eyes. His clothes are torn and caked in dried blood, a grim reminder of the chaos he barely survived. He stares at his hands, both covered in crimson stains that have dried into a dark crust. Reaching for his phone, he taps the screen to check the time. It's 8:47 a.m., but something about the display feels completely wrong. He freezes as he stares at the date, his eyes widening in total shock at what he's seeing. He's been unconscious for 3 full days while the world moved on without him. The sun is high, and the birds are chirping like nothing ever happened. The campsite is a mess of abandoned belongings, with open suitcases and gear scattered everywhere. Zack scans the area, but Hannah and the others are nowhere to be found, and they left all their important gear behind. He grits his teeth, wrapping a fresh bandage around his arm and tightening it with his mouth. Realistically, if they haven't come back to the camp by now, they're probably not coming back at all. He steps out into the woods, noticing how much thicker and more vibrant the trees have become in just a few days. Everything looks lush, alien, and way too overgrown. As he scales a tree near the campsite, he realizes something impossible. The deep wounds that should have killed him have vanished. His skin is clear and the pain is gone. He breathes hard, trying to process how his body could have healed so fast. He should be dead, yet he's standing here feeling stronger than ever. He checks the RV's landline, but the receiver just dangles uselessly with no dial tone. There's no signal for his phone either. Outside, their SUV sits abandoned with the hood up, the battery completely dead. He's stranded in the middle of a forest that doesn't look like Earth anymore. Climbing high, he still grips his axe tightly. He knows he's not alone. There's something else lurking in these woods. Recalling the image of the hideous, giant wolf with its glowing eyes and jagged teeth snarling at him, he couldn't help but shudder. Sizing up the strange creature, he wonders if Earth is being invaded by aliens. The world he knew is disappearing all too fast. Images of his father and his sister, Kenzie, flash through his mind. If this forest has turned into a death trap, he can't even imagine what's happened to the rest of the planet. A look of cold determination settles in his eyes. He needs to get home to his family, no matter what it takes. Zack continues to climb, pulling himself up the thick branches with surprising ease. His body feels much lighter and more agile than before. He swings his axe, burying the blade deep into the bark to haul himself even higher into the canopy. The wood is thick and sturdy. Reaching the upper branches, he catches his breath and looks out at the horizon. The view is both beautiful and terrifying. Two massive red beams pierce the sky in the distance, casting an ominous glow over the mountains. He searches for a sign of civilization, but what he sees is far beyond anything humanity has ever possessed. His eyes narrow as he looks past the forest and sees nothing but water in every direction. He isn't just lost, he's trapped on an island. He grinds his teeth, his face contorting as he stares at the transformed world. "What have you done to my world?" he mutters under his breath. He screams at the top of his lungs, venting his rage at the system for what it's done. His voice echoes through the silent, alien jungle. A sharp beep cuts through his yelling as a translucent blue screen flickers to life right in front of him. It's the same interface from before. Notifications start flooding the air, granting him titles like Born for Carnage and Ultimate Reaper for his first solo kills. Each one comes with a massive boost to his stats. More boxes pop up, Giant's Bane and Disciple of David. The system is rewarding him for things he didn't even realize he'd accomplished. The chimes keep coming as the system labels him overpowered, and a slayer of Leviathans for taking down enemies way above his level. His strength and endurance numbers are climbing rapidly. One last ding announces he's reached level 10, earning him the Adventurer title and even more stat points. He stares at the screen, trying to make sense of the math. Zack stares at the floating screens, his face lit up by the blue glow. "Is this me?" he wonders, seeing his own name on the interface. His full status sheet appears. Zachary Atwood, level 16. His luck is through the roof, and he's sitting on over 5,000 Nexus coins. He looks at his own hands, wondering if the entire world has really been turned into a giant video game. It's the only explanation that fits the reality in front of him. He realizes that almost all of his new power comes from those impossible titles he earned by sheer luck during the incursion era. Then he notices the active quests tab. He has 3 months to kill 4 heralds and an incursion general, or it's game over for good. Looking back at the distant red beam, he realizes that must be where the incursions are happening. It's his target for the months ahead. A new prompt appears, notifying him that he's met the requirements to create an outpost. It seems like the system wants him to claim this territory. Zack looks down at the campsite, thinking that a fortified base would be a lot safer than sleeping in an RV in a forest full of monsters. It would be nice to have a place to call home. "Fine, yes," he groans, tapping the screen to accept the prompt. "Make the outpost." A bright blue rectangle flashes in the air as the system congratulates him on successfully claiming the area. The air feels charged with energy. Suddenly, a voice from the side asks what he's doing. Zack turns to find a small, floating purple orb with a single, galaxy-like eye watching him from the branches. This is Vethabarak, or Abby, his new guide. Zack grips his axe, eyes darting toward the floating purple entity with one large eye. The air hums as the creature, Vethabarak, who calls himself Abby, levitates right in front of him. Zack's face contorts in total confusion. He spent 3 days alone in a death-trap forest, and now a talking orb is hovering in his personal space. His boots slip on the thick tree branch with a loud stumble, sending wood chips flying. He manages to catch himself, but the realization hits him. This thing is definitely not human. Abby floats closer, his single eye pulsing with cosmic light. He sounds almost bored as he remarks that they both seem disappointed with the current situation. Zack wobbles precariously, his arms windmilling as he tries to maintain his balance high above the ground. While frantically struggling to regain his balance, he grabs onto a massive, slick-scaled body. Zack's pupils shrink to pinpricks as he looks down in total shock, realizing that he is holding onto the body of a living creature. He barely has time to react before a giant snake begins coiling around the branch and his legs. He realizes he let his guard down for one fatal second. The massive serpent wraps its body around Zack with terrifying speed. He lets out a grunt as the pressure starts to crush the air out of his lungs. The giant snake hisses, its fangs dripping as it looms over Zack. It's coiling tighter and tighter, ready to turn him into its next meal. Zack's face is etched with a grim scowl. He's tired of being the prey in this new world. As the scales tighten around his torso, Zack's gaze hardens. He knows that if he wants to survive and get stronger, he has to start taking massive risks. He lets go of the snake's tail with a quick release, his fingers sliding off the smooth, dark scales. Instead of pulling away, Zack reaches out and grabs the serpent right behind its head with a firm grab. His grip is like iron, pinning the beast's jaws shut. With a roar of defiance, he smashes the snake's head against the tree trunk. He refuses to die in some nameless forest before he even finds his family. A sickening crack echoes through the woods as the branch he's standing on snaps. Zack doesn't stop. He continues to struggle with the serpent as they both begin to plummet. He realizes the system doesn't reward the peaceful. It rewards the hunters and the killers. His battle doesn't stop for even a single moment. Zack realizes that power is the only thing that matters right now. In this new world, nothing is more important than strength in order to survive. "I must become the strongest," he declares, his eyes burning with a new, dangerous resolve. Abby watches the display from a safe distance, his eye half-lidded. He sighs, sounding completely unimpressed by the bloody spectacle. The orb floats through the canopy, musing that an outpost would have helped, but selecting a treehouse for one was a pretty stupid idea. He floats away, his galaxy-like pupils shifting. He's seen countless races across the multiverse, and humans have always been notoriously average, pathetic even. Suddenly, a series of wet hacking sounds catch Abby's attention. He pauses, looking back down toward the base of the tree. Blood sprays across the air in a violent shuk. Zack is at it again, swinging his axe with brutal efficiency. Down on the forest floor, Zack is methodically hacking the giant snake into pieces. He's not just killing it, he's making sure it stays down. Abby's eye widens, his expression shifting from boredom to genuine surprise. This isn't the behavior of an average human. Zack stops for a moment, huffing as sweat and blood drip from his chin. He looks like a demon himself standing in the red clearing. The giant snake is in dozens of pieces, its blood soaking the grass in a wide, dark circle. Zack stands in the center of the slaughter, axe in hand. Zack points his axe directly at the alien creature as if sending a message, then looks up at the floating orb. He is still level 16, but he looks like he's aged years in just those few short minutes. Abby floats down, his tone shifting as he admits he might have misjudged Zack's merit. Maybe this human isn't so average after all. Zack just stares back, his expression guarded and suspicious of the talking cosmic eyeball. "My name is Vethabarak, but you can call me Abby," the creature introduces himself. He explains he was sent to assist Zack since he chose this area as an outpost. Zack doesn't lower his guard, asking how the thing can talk without a mouth and what exactly assist means. Abby rolls his eye with an annoyed roll, calling Zack a rube for missing the tutorial pixies. He clearly thinks he's dealing with an idiot. Zack's temper flares. He snaps back that the stupid system never sent him to any tutorial. It just left him alone in a demon forest 3 days ago. Abby blinks with a quick blink, his cosmic eye flickering as he processes this new information. 3 days? Abby exclaims, his voice rising in shock. He tells Zack that the world was only initiated 3 days ago, not months as it had thought. The orb taps his tail against his body with a tap-tap, deep in thought. He's trying to reconcile Zack's high level with the short time since integration. "Oh wow, I must have been assigned to a defier," Abby shouts, sounding excited for the first time. Zack just looks more confused, asking what the hell a defier is. Abby decides it's time for some actual explanations. He shows Zack a vision of glowing planets drifting in a cosmic void, explaining that Earth has been integrated into the multiverse. He describes a realm of countless planets that has existed for billions of years, far beyond Earth's comprehension. Abby further reveals that when Earth was integrated, most people were teleported to these tutorial towns to learn the system's rules. They will spend time getting acclimated there, staying safe for a period of 1 month, and Zack's family is likely among them. In contrast to the deficient, ones who cannot naturally absorb energy from the universe, they will be cast by the system into a separate void. Afterward, they will be released into the wilderness, a place teeming with monsters where they will eventually become prey for these creatures. Back at the quiet, empty campsite, Zack stands alone with his axe, looking down at the scattered belongings of his missing friends. He asks Abby what a defier is in this cruel hierarchy. Zack's eyes narrow, a golden glint reflecting his growing intensity as he asks if he is also destined for the same bloody end. Abby describes a defier as a mortal who somehow manages to gain power far beyond any initial expectations. A man stands bathed in radiant, golden flames, a visual testament to someone breaking the system's rules. A montage of Zack's recent life-or-death struggles flashes by, his desperate fight against the giant wolf and the crushing grip of the snake. Abby notes that the system believes Zack is weak and has left him to die, but he continues to defy fate. Abby admits that his situation is extreme, even by the standards of other defiers. He warns that while Zack has been given a fantastic opportunity, his path will be anything but easy. Honestly, the description of defiers and deficient ones is a bit confusing, but according to the admin, Zack is basically a deficient one who was left behind by the system in the wilderness. However, because he luckily survived the dice roll and defied the system, Abby calls him a defier. That's why the system keeps throwing incredibly difficult quests at him. If you have a different take, please leave a comment so I can adjust things in the next parts. Thanks. Zack doesn't look impressed, his face still splattered with the blood of the giant snake. He skeptically asks if nearly dying due to a dice roll can really be called an opportunity. To help Zack understand, Abby describes the system as a massive hand with power rivaling that of the galaxies. The creature continues to declare that the system's voice is one of the very few things that actually carries weight in this multiverse. The ethereal hand hovers menacingly over Zack's silhouette, its power dwarfing the small clearing. Abby warns him that the system has no patience for cowards. The hand clenches around Zack with a powerful grip. While Abby points out the fate of defiers who do not obey the system, it states that if he fails or abandons the assigned quests, he will be punished. Zack realizes he has no choice but to complete the quests and slaughter every demon that stands in his way. His eyes flash with a dangerous, golden light as he stares back at the floating guide. He asks with a low growl if he even gets a choice in his own destiny. Abby continues to remind him that he is on the front lines and that the system is watching his every move. Suddenly, Abby's eye darts to the side with a sharp glance, his wings flickering as if he's heard something Zack hasn't. Abby's tone shifts, urging Zack to try and complete the incoming quests within a single month instead of the allocated 3. He starts to explain the benefits before his voice trails off. With a sudden, pained "AUNGH," Abby's form begins to distort and flicker violently. A loud crunch echoes through the air as if the very space around him is being crushed. A brilliant purple blink flashes against the trunk of a tree, and in an instant, Abby is gone. Zack looks around in total shock, his axe ready, calling out for his vanished guide. A cold blue notification box appears in the air where Abby just stood. Outpost Administrator RETURNED Early BY System. Zack can only stare at the fatting purple sparks. Sweat beads on Zack's forehead as he tries to process the sudden disappearance. "What the hell?" he mutters, his breath hitching. His face hardens into a mask of grim determination as he repeats the deadline to himself. 1 month. The scene shifts to the opulent, Gothic halls of Clan Ockrell's castle, where demon nobles are gathered for a lavish feast. The air is thick with the sound of chatter and the clinking of glasses. Agras, a demon aristocrat with shoulder-length purple hair and small red horns, leans against a stone railing. Dressed in ornate military noble attire, he stares down at the crowd with a look of cold, calculated boredom. A noblewoman with long red hair and curved horns, Aaliyah, approaches him in a provocative red gown. She remarks with a sly smile that he doesn't look very happy today. Aaliyah stands beside Agras, holding a glass of dark wine as she tells him he should be celebrating. Agras barely glances at her, asking flatly what he would have to celebrate in a place like this. From their high vantage point, they look out over the grand feasting hall filled with rows of long tables and bowing servants. Aaliyah reveals that his grandfather, the clan patriarch Ockrell, has just named him the new incursion general. Agras looks toward the other nobles, including a tall man with long white hair and red horns who stands nearby in polished white armor. A close-up reveals Agras's narrowed blue eyes, glowing with a faint, predatory light. He knows that the title of general is an honor his kin would gladly kill to obtain for themselves. The white-haired demon noble stands silently, his expression unreadable but his presence imposing as a member of the elite clan. Aaliyah teases Agras, telling him he'll finally have to prepare for a real fight instead of wasting all his time at the local brothels. Agras looks back at her, his expression shifting to one of mild offense as he asks if she really thinks he's that simple. Agras slowly steps down to the main floor. He scoffs at the idea of a direct fight, calling it their game and not his. Suddenly, a nearby blonde-haired demon noble lets out a strangled "URK" and clutches his throat. Purple blood begins to spill from his mouth, his eyes wide with sudden agony. The poisoned demon collapses onto the floor with a loud crash, his glass shattering into 1,000 pieces as the other guests recoil in horror. A white-haired noblewoman screams in terror, demanding to know who did this while begging for someone to help the dying man. Around her, the other nobles only whisper among themselves, their faces masks of cold indifference. A close-up shows the poisoned man's hand twitching feebly in a spreading pool of dark purple blood. No one moves to assist him. Agras is shown in a disorienting, upside-down perspective, his cape billowing as he watches the chaos. He muses that fools will always believe they are the ones pulling the strings until they find themselves being strangled by them. A peaceful stream ripples over the rocks in the middle of the woods. A blue glowing insect zips through the air, completely undisturbed, until a massive bargus dips its snout in for a quick drink. The demon dog is just minding its own business, getting hydrated for the hunt. That little blue bug circles back around and lands right between those glowing red eyes. It's a surprisingly calm moment for a monster that usually eats people, but its ear twitches as it catches a sound it didn't expect. It starts to turn its head, sensing a predator is nearby. Too late, Zack is already hovering right behind it with his axe. One massive swing, and the beast is split wide open. Another 100 coins and a level up. Zack's getting pretty efficient at this. He takes a seat by the riverbank to catch his breath. The system definitely doesn't make leveling up easy, but it does give him a handful of stat points to play with every time. Right now, he's sitting on 32 unallocated points at level 17. He thinks about hoarding them for later, but he knows better now. The fight with the snake proved that being naive gets you killed. He pulls up the holographic menu and starts tapping through his options. He dumps every single point into his physical stats like strength and vitality. There's no point saving for a future that might not happen. He lies back on the dirt, staring up at the canopy. He's got 25 days left until his first month is officially up. He keeps replaying Abby's warning about finishing his quests early. There has to be a reason the system punished her for giving him that tip. Maybe there's a secret reward, or maybe the world just gets 10 times deadlier. Either way, his life is about to get a whole lot harder. While everyone else is safe in a tutorial, he's out here in the wild. He splashes some cold river water on his face to wake himself up. Then he yanks his axe out of the dead beast with a wet squelch. Time to get back to work. The blue insect follows along as Zack heads back into the trees. As night falls, he sets up a small fire by the RV. He roasts a thick slab of monster meat over the flames. He starts scrolling through his unique titles to see what kind of buffs he's got. Born for Carnage gave him a flat 10% boost to all stats just for being the first to kill a monster. Ultimate Reaper for soloing an incursion general adds even more on top of that. And Slayer of Leviathans for the snake kill is just icing on the cake. He takes a big bite, feeling the raw power these titles provide. He wonders about the outpost and why he didn't get a title for creating it, which might mean someone else out there already did it before him. He stares into the fire, remembering how that tiny snake became a giant in an instant. Zack knows he's not the only one playing this game, and there's no telling how strong the competition is already getting. He needs to find something in the shop to close the gap, something to make him stronger or help him find his family. But in this new world, absolutely everything worth having costs Nexus coins. He swipes through the holographic menu, doing the math based on his kills so far. 100 coins for a dog plus whatever he got for the snake. It's a decent start. Then he sees it, a teleporter. He stops mid-bite as the possibility of seeing his family again starts to feel real. Could it bring them to him or drop him right on their doorstep? He'd settle for just getting back to civilization. But then the price tag hits him like a 10-ton weight. 10 million Nexus coins. At this rate, he'd have to slaughter a literal mountain of demon dogs to afford it. He looks at his active quests, realizing that building up his outpost might be his best bet for a head start. If he can hit level 25 or take out the heralds, the rewards could give him the edge he needs. Just like with his stat points, He realizes he can't afford to hoard his coins. He has to spend them on things that will help him survive the next 5 minutes, not the next year. He narrows it down to the only 2 things of note that he can actually afford right now. The first is a skill called Eye of Discernment for 3,000 coins. It's basically a scanner that gives him the stats and weaknesses of whatever monster he's looking at. It's a literal game changer for someone who's been fighting blind this whole time. But identifying them is only half the battle. He still needs to outscale them. The second purchase is an F-grade small-scale mother-daughter gathering array. A massive mouthful, but the utility of this glowing necklace is undeniable. While he wears it, it passively absorbs cosmic energy from the surrounding area 24/7. It's like he's constantly cultivating his power, even while he's fast asleep. He might not be a mystical cultivator, but he's not above stealing their tricks to get ahead. But even with the passive buff, things are moving too slow for his liking. He grabs his axe and decides it's time to go kill some more shit. He starts hunting from the shadows, dropping down on Barghists before they even know he's there. When he gets the drop on them, they go down with one clean hit. But when things get messy and they manage to fight back, well, that's when he gets a face full of purple blood and has to work for his dinner. With every encounter, he starts to understand them better, tracking fresh prints through the rain. He masters the weight and follow-through of every axe swing. He learns how to block those jagged claws without getting his head ripped off. He starts putting his new skill to work, officially identifying his targets as Barghists. He even gets tactical, stashing supply caches in hollowed-out trees all across the island. Day after day, he hunts, drags back his prizes, and heads right back out. He fights until his muscles scream, and his bandages are soaked through. He bleeds for every scrap of experience the system offers. He loses track of the count after dozens, maybe hundreds of kills, as level-ups become rarer. But even as the progress slows, his raw power is skyrocketing. Eventually, he stops seeing the Barghists as terrifying predators. He's reached level 23, but he knows he still needs to pick up the pace if he wants to survive what's coming. Zach's stats have improved significantly, but the clock is ticking. There are less than 5 days left until the month ends. Somewhere far away from the forest, heavy footsteps echo through a lavish hall. Rydell approaches his superior, the General Ogres, who is relaxing behind a massive desk. Ogres looks up from his wine, greeting his general with a casual, almost mocking smile. Rydell remains stiff and professional, clearly unamused by his leader's lack of focus. Ogres dismisses the tension, telling his second-in-command to take a seat and relax. "I would rather stand," Rydell replies, his patience with Ogres' attitude wearing thin. He sniffs the air, detecting the strong scent of alcohol on his superior's breath. Ogres groans, claiming there isn't much else to do since their part in the incursion doesn't start for several weeks. Rydell slides a document across the desk, telling Ogres to sign it so he can return to his wine. Ogres signs without a second thought, agreeing to appoint Rydell's cousin as Master of Scouts. Rydell takes the orders and leaves, promising to ensure they are followed swiftly. Ogres watches him go, relieved to have the tedious paperwork out of the way. The heavy doors shut with a final click, leaving the general to his luxury. He smiles to himself, thinking about how he'll finally be free from this den of Barghist in just a few more weeks. Back on the island, Zach moves through the brush with quiet efficiency. He places a hand on a mossy rock, steadying himself as he stalks his prey. His eyes are sharp, peering through the leaves at a creature in the distance. A massive Barghist is sniffing the air, completely unaware that it's being watched. Zach stays low and remains downwind, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He's confident the monster hasn't noticed him yet. Suddenly, a flash of red light catches his eye. Something is very wrong. From the shadows, a second monster lunges forward with a bone-chilling snap of its jaws. Zach is caught off guard as the creature's terrifying presence fills the area. Fortunately, he didn't act impulsively just now. He quietly slips away from this danger zone. This beast is different, larger, faster, and far more lethal than any he's hunted so far. It sniffs the air, the scent of blood driving it into a primal frenzy. As if catching a scent, its frantic red eyes search wildly for the new intruder. With a deafening roar, the beast begins to thrash about and search the surroundings. The force of its charge is overwhelming, a true predator from the demon realm. Zach is no longer nearby, but the monster's scent tracking and searching speed is truly terrifying. What the hell was that thing? He thinks, his mind racing as he makes a break for it. It's significantly larger than the others, with claws as big as his arm. Could it be a herald? He silently assesses. He realizes he can't win this fight head-on. He needs to get back to his camp and regroup. After fleeing for a while, he creeps back toward the edge of the forest after hearing some strange noises. He sees a strange, small creature standing by a fire, speaking in a language he doesn't recognize. Zach watches from behind a tree, his heart pounding at the sight of an intelligent demon. This one seems far more dangerous than the beasts, poking at its dinner with a casual air. He wonders if it was specifically sent to find him or his outpost. He decides to use his eye of discernment. Hopping it will reveal how to handle this new threat. The skill identifies the creatures as an imp and a gwilgi, both belonging to clan Azrazak. Zak's heart drops when the imp stops and turns its head directly toward his hiding spot. Shit, it sensed my ability, he realizes, as the imp begins to shriek and gather a sinister purple energy. Zak hastily dodges that blinding purple sphere, gritting his teeth in fury as he realizes this enemy is far more powerful than any of the monsters he has encountered before. The creepy little imp starts charging up a ball of purple soul fire. Zak ducks just in time as it flies past, wondering if the thing actually sensed his power. He grits his teeth, knowing things just got a lot more complicated. He swings his small axe, and surprisingly it works. His strike bats the purple sphere aside. Glancing back at the explosion behind him, he realizes that taking them down is actually possible. He turns back and glares at his attackers, searching for a way out of this situation. Before he can even recover, he sees a red blur lunging at him. The four-eyed wolf lunges forward and chomps down right on the handle of his axe. It slams him into the ground with a heavy thud, pinning him down. The wolf growls, its teeth gnashing into the wood as it tries to snap at Zak, but it is held back by the axe handle. Zak manages to plant a boot in its chest and shove the beast off him, but then he notices the purple fire sticking to his arm and tries to swat it away. It only grazed him, but the damage feels like it's eating straight into his soul. The imp just hovers there cackling, watching the wolf close back in. Then with a sickening crack, the wolf snaps Zak's hatchet right in half. He's stuck in the woods with two monsters and a broken weapon. Zak realizes that if he can't win this, he doesn't deserve the luck he's had so far. Determined to go all in, Zak charges straight at the wolf. The imp fires off another soul blast to try and slow him down. Zak weaves through the shots like his life depends on it, because it does. The wolf leaps, claws out, and ready to finish him off. Instead of backing away, Zak catches the beast midair. Ignoring the scratching claws, Zak hugs the creature tightly, completely pinning its body. He rides the monster all the way to the ground, slamming it into the earth. He starts raining down blows on the beast's head. He's completely lost in the frenzy of the fight now. A final punch connects with a loud crunch to the wolf's jaw. He stands over the mangled wolf, covered in blood and breathing heavy. Behind Zak's back, the imp is still grinning, as if it's all just a game. Suddenly, a massive wave of purple energy erupts from Zak's body. In a moment of fading consciousness from the pain, he feels something deep within him begin to shift. The soul fire that was burning him, suddenly, doesn't feel like an enemy anymore. He realizes his big victory from before was just pure, dumb luck. In a moment of fading consciousness from the pain, he feels something deep within him begin to shift. It lunges its sharp red tail straight at his throat. But at this moment within Zak's body, a stream of energy begins to awaken, cosmic energy, the fundamental building block that holds the entire multiverse together. He's had this power inside him since the very first thing he killed. The gathering array skill wasn't just a stat boost, it was teaching him how to use this energy. Now he finally understands how to reach out and control it. His eyes start to glow with an intense, golden light. He reaches out and grabs the monster's tail, telling the thing it made a huge mistake breaking his axe. The fat little imp just stands there, watching with those creepy, glowing yellow eyes. Suddenly, it lets out a piercing shriek, barring rows of razor-sharp teeth. It hovers in the air and starts raining down a barrage of purple soul fire. Zak is done being a victim. He dives straight into the chaos, grabs the wolf's tail, and swings it with all his might. He lets out a thunderous roar as he uses the wolf's body to strike directly at the incoming cluster of purple spheres. He's pushing himself to the absolute limit, the energy burning through his veins. The imp takes the full brunt of Zak's rage, its body swallowed by the explosion and the mangled flesh of its own pet. The entire clearing goes up in a blinding flash of power. A whole month passes, and Zak has managed to survive until day 30. He's been keeping track of time by scraping tally marks into the side of a cliff. The woods have become his home, and he's made his base right by a quiet pool of water. He watches the water splash, a rare moment of peace in a world that's gone to hell. Zak sits and sharpens his gear, his body now covered in scars and primitive bandages. He inspects the new axe handle he just fashioned and decides that it is finally good enough for what's coming. He wanted to reach level 25 and unlock a class first, but he doesn't have any more time to wait. He knows the system won't slow down for him, so he has to keep the momentum going. Risking everything is the only way to get the best rewards, and he's ready to gamble again. Zak stands tall, looking like a total predator now, ready to hunt down a second herald. Far away from Zak's island, a hand with blackened claws grips a stone ledge. Two figures stand on a high balcony, looking out over a dark landscape. Agra smirks, thinking about what a busy month it's been for them. He asks Rydell if he agrees, and the stoic warrior admits it's been a lot of work. They know this is just the beginning. Once the portal finishes forming, they'll be cut off from their clan to start the real invasion. They look down at the massive army they've assembled around the forming gate. Under a blood-red moon, thousands of warriors stand ready, led by a commander who can hardly wait for the war to start. Zack lunged forward with his axe, narrowly dodging a massive strike. The vole snarled, its red eyes locked on its prey as he twisted away in midair. He hit the ground hard, tumbling across the grass to put some distance between them. The fighter dug his fingers into the dirt, sliding to a halt as he prepared for the next rush. Zack was gasping for air, his body reaching its limit from the constant dodging. The level 45 Vul loomed over him, its massive shadow dwarfing the human fighter. His mind drifted back to a quieter time, fishing by a lake with his father. The bobber dipped beneath the surface with a quiet plop. Zack's father explained that every animal has a specialty, like a bird's wings or a rabbit's speed. "Oh, you got one?" A younger Zack cheered, watching the rod bend. His dad gave the line a sharp yank to set the hook. He sighed as the fish escaped, nodding that while they weren't strong, fish were incredibly slippery. The man continued that humans don't have natural weapons, but they have something better: tools and traps. The point wasn't to be faster or stronger than the prey. "We catch stuff 'cause we figure it out," he said, baiting a hook. "That's what makes us special." 2 hours before the fight even started, Zack was already setting the stage. He had spent that time carving out a massive pit and filling it with sharpened wooden spears. Back in the present, the herald let out a deafening roar, ready to end the chase. Zack knew he couldn't win a contest of raw strength against a beast that outleveled him so much. The gap was just too large. One solid hit would be the end of him. He just had to make sure the monster never actually touched him. The protagonist focused his energy, pushing his body to move faster than it was ever meant to. Blood sprayed as the strain began to tear at his muscles from the inside out. But he didn't stop, his axe humming with a lethal light. Zack realized he could channel cosmic energy into specific parts of his body to boost his stats on the fly. His arm glowed with power, taking a glancing blow that would have normally shattered bone. The beast growled, charging forward again with reckless abandon. "Come on, this way," Zack taunted, leading the monster toward the clearing he'd prepared. The vul smashed through everything in its path, blinded by its own predatory rage. Every drop of energy he used had to count. He wasn't a cultivator with an endless supply. The monster crushes the tree trunk at the exact spot where Zack had been standing just a second before. It let out a frustrated roar, its claws tearing up the earth. Zack grit his teeth, forcing his legs to keep moving as he led it toward the trap. A massive shockwave rippled through the clearing as the beast finally overstepped. The fighter leaped into the air, his eyes fixed on the target below. Zack brings his axe down with all his remaining strength, aiming straight for the beast's head in an attempt to wear down its power. Meanwhile, at a massive incursion portal, a sinister purple energy hummed in the air. Heavy armored boots stepped onto the platform, echoing through the silent base. Agras approaches the 2 guards, inquiring about Rydell's whereabouts. The demon noble casually replied that Rydell had already crossed over into the new world. He looked up at the general, a scarred and veteran demon officer. The general gave a stiff nod, oblivious to the betrayal Agras was about to unleash. Agras led his squad through the purple aura, coldly informing the general that he wouldn't be following Rydell into the new world. He flashed a wicked grin, his fangs catching the light as he prepared to strike down his superior. A massive energy beam shot across the sky, marking the start of his bloody rebellion. Back in the woods, Zack was running for his life, every muscle screaming in protest. His necklace flared with a chaotic light, barely containing the power surging through him. He could feel his body literally ripping at the seams as he pushed the cosmic energy too far. The level 45 Vul was closing the distance, its heavy thuds echoing through the trees. Zack spotted his target ahead, a patch of ground that looked perfectly normal but was anything but. The beast let out a terrifying roar, certain it was about to taste blood. It was a neck-on-neck race as the two tore through the forest floor. Zack grit his teeth against the searing pain, forcing his legs to find one last gear. He made a break for the hidden pit he'd lined with sharpened spears. The monster snapped at his heels, missing by mere inches as they reached the clearing. With a sudden burst of energy, Zack dug in his heel and made a sharp 90-degree turn. He launched himself into the air, clearing the hidden trap in one desperate leap. The vole tried to lunge after him, but its massive size made it impossible to stop. It fell straight into the pit, the sound of splintering wood and tearing flesh filling the air. The herald's red eyes went wide as the predatory thrill turned into a fight for its life. Zack landed hard on the far side and spun around to see if his plan had actually worked. The beast was completely pinned, the massive wooden stakes driven deep into its body. It thrashed and shrieked in a pool of its own blood, but there was no escaping the trap. The glow in its eyes slowly faded as the last of its HP drained away. Suddenly, a flood of system messages appeared, announcing that Zack had reached level 25. He leaned back and took a deep breath, finally able to say he'd done it. He started laughing like a madman, the sheer absurdity of his survival finally hitting home. He looked up at the sky and gave the goddamn system a one-fingered salute for making him work so hard. But suddenly a burst of red light flares up, and a roar erupts, shaking all the surrounding trees. His triumph was short-lived, as a pair of glowing red eyes suddenly emerged from the brush. His heart dropped into his stomach, as he realized the noise had attracted unwanted attention. Dozens more eyes opened in the darkness, surrounding him before he could even recover. Back at the incursion base, the purple clouds swirled over the demonic fortress. A wounded guard begged for his life, realizing his loyalty to the general had just become a death sentence. Agras didn't waste any words, ending the man's life with a single brutal swing. The body slumped to the floor as the demon noble moved on without a second look. He stood in a room full of corpses, the first step of his rogue mission complete. Names asked how much longer they'd have to hide their true forms behind these disguises. Agras told him they'd keep the charade until he decided otherwise. Nearby, a dying guard wheezed as he stared up at the man who had betrayed them all. Aaliyah asked if that order applied to her as well, curious about Agras's plan. He walked away from the slaughter, wanting to stay a ghost to anyone in the new world. Ilver finished off another guard while questioning if it was smart to give up his grandfather's protection. A final look at the fallen guards showed just how far Agras was willing to go for his freedom. Ilver dropped the body of the last loyalist, somberly reminding Agras that there would be no going back once they crossed this line. Agras accepted the terms without a hint of hesitation, his mind long since made up. He looked down at the carnage, declaring that he was finished with his wretched, backstabbing clan and their endless games. His eyes burned with a cold determination as he looked toward the horizon of the new world. Leading his small, elite squad, Agras marched toward the massive energy rift, ready to introduce himself to the locals. Zack is booking it through the woods, but those beasts aren't letting up. He's gasping for air and it's looking grim. The monsters are everywhere. They're snapping at his heels, closing the gap faster than he can run. He's wondering why Abby didn't warn him that killing a boss would summon every monster on the island. His legs are sparking with what little energy he has left after the fight with the Herald. He's huffing and puffing, knowing he can't outrun a whole pack like this. One of them lunges, barely missing as Zack skids across the dirt. Another one drops from the trees right on top of him. He swings his axe in a desperate arc, catching the beast midair. He sticks the landing hard, lungs burning as more monsters surround him. Wait, he notices a faint glow crackling in his hand. Killing that beast actually gave him some energy back. If he keeps this up, he might not run dry. More of them come charging out of the brush. Zack cracks a grin. He doesn't need to run anymore. He plants his foot and does a full 180. The lead beast doesn't even realize he's stopped fleeing. A massive swing tears right through the monster's skull. He's done being the prey. Now he's just going to kill every last one of them. Miles away, a massive pillar of red light pierces the sky above a demonic camp. Inside the command center, the demon leaders are huddling over a map. The commander orders Kevorin to get some scouting parties organized. Kevorin is already on it. They need to find whatever killed Urkhaz. The commander wants to know what they're up against, but someone's coming through the portal. The other demons are restless, wondering if Agras is finally showing up. A portal flares to life, and a heavy boot steps through the light. A new squad of demons arrives, looking ready for a fight. They definitely aren't here for a friendly visit. Back in the forest, Zack is leaning against a tree, barely holding it together. He's covered in gore, and his axe is looking as beat up as he is. He's focused on one thing, finding one of his hidden supply caches. He looks out over the field of corpses toward his goal. He starts hobbling toward a thick tree, every step looking like a struggle. He reaches up and grabs a branch with his bandaged hand. Using what's left of his strength, he hauls himself up into the canopy. He settles into a high branch where nothing can sneak up on him. He leans back against the trunk, finally letting his eyes close. The sun breaks through the leaves as the forest comes to life in the morning. Zack blinks awake. It's been over a month now. He sits up, reflecting on how the world still hasn't ended. Then he looks at that red beam in the distance and realizes it ended a month ago. He tightens the bandages on his arm, getting ready for the day. A bird takes flight, leaving him alone in the quiet woods. He's making progress, but his body is still a long way from 100%. It's going to be a long walk back to his camp. He's focused on one goal, getting home so he can finally pick his class. Suddenly, the snap of a branch behind him stops him cold. Someone's tracking him. A demon scout in full armor is prowling through the woods. Zack drops into the brush, keeping his eyes on the target. He can't believe it. It's an actual demon, not just another beast. The scout kneels to inspect some blood on the ground, muttering in a strange language. He seems to be looking for his missing comrades, calling out for Agras. Zack doesn't give him a second to react, dropping from above with a heavy strike. A single blow to the back of the head sends the demon straight into the dirt. Zack looks over the gear, deciding the scout's axe is exactly the upgrade he needs. He hauls the unconscious demon over his shoulder and starts moving. He finds a quiet spot and ties his prisoner up tight. A splash of cold water brings the scout gasping back to consciousness. The demon wakes up shouting for his brothers, but he isn't going anywhere. Zack brings the edge of the new axe close to the demon's throat to shut him up. He starts the interrogation, making it clear he's the one in charge. He wants to know one thing: how many more of them are invading his world? The system identifies him as Azun, a level 33 member of Clan Azrazak. Zack cuts through his armor, demanding answers before he loses his patience. Azun just glares at him, his body starting to pulse with a violent red light. Instead of talking, the demon decided to take the human out with him. Zack sees the energy peaking and realizes he's in serious trouble. The scout goes nuclear, turning the clearing into a wall of fire. The explosion tears through the trees, leaving nothing but smoke and ash. Zack gets tossed back, staring at the smoking crater. He realizes these guys are total fanatics. They'd rather blow themselves up than let a human get a single scrap of info. All that's left of the scout is a charred hand on the scorched ground. Zack hauls himself up into the trees to regroup and watch for any more trouble. From his vantage point, he can see his camp is still untouched and quiet. He drops back down to the ground with a heavy thud. He looks at the blast marks near his trailer, annoyed by the whole ordeal. He really wanted that demon's armor, but at least he got the axe before the boom. He realizes he made a rookie mistake by not stripping the scout's gear immediately. He should have seen the signs before the guy turned himself into a bomb. One massive blast later, and his only source of info is gone. At least he's got a replacement for his old, battered axe. He checks his progress and realizes he finally hit level 25. Now it's finally time to see what this class selection is all about. Zack stands at the center of his camp, knowing there's one final precaution he needs to take before making his move. He pulls up the interface for an F-grade small-scale illusion array he recently acquired. With a heavy thud, a large, rugged crate materializes on the ground before him. He pries it open to find a set of glowing purple spikes, nodding they're quite different from the last array he used. Zack moves around the perimeter of his camp, carefully placing the enchanted spikes into the dirt. He drives the final spike into the earth, completing the circle. He steps back to admire his work, eager to see how well this new defense system actually performs. The array hums to life, and the spikes begin to discharge crackling bolts of purple energy. A powerful wave of magic erupts from the center, sweeping over Zack as the system confirms the activation. A shimmering dome of purple light expands until it covers the entire campsite, trailer and all. From the outside, the clearing seems to ripple and blink out of existence, replaced by the illusion of undisturbed forest. Zack touches the shimmering boundary, marveling at how his entire base is now perfectly camouflaged. He breathes a sigh of relief, knowing he can finally focus without worrying about wandering demons. With his security handled, he turns his full attention to the main event, his class selection. A blue prompt appears, congratulating him on reaching level 25 and asking if he's ready to choose. Zack doesn't hesitate for a second, tapping the yes button with a confident smirk. His excitement is cut short by a red error screen demanding 6,000 Nexus coins for a Nexus node. Zack curses the system's greed, realizing this will wipe out nearly every coin he's earned through blood and sweat. He bites the bullet and confirms the purchase. Desperately hopping the process doesn't give away his position. A beam of light strikes the ground, and a massive, glowing crystal node materializes in the center of the camp. He approaches the strange monument, unsure if it's an interface or something more permanent. He gently taps the side of the pedestal with the head of his axe, triggering another prompt. The crystal flashes, and a new window pops open in his field of vision. He squints as the system informs him that he has 5 distinct class choices available. A predatory grin spreads across his face. The moment he's been working toward is finally here. The first option is Fighter, a common grade path for those proficient in basic melee combat. Next is Acolyte, another common grade choice focused on wielding the basic elements of magic. The third is Marine, an uncommon class specifically designed for naval combat at sea. Then there's Demon Hunter, an uncommon class dedicated to locating and exterminating demonic threats. Finally, he sees Hatchetman, a rare class described as the lumberjack of an endless forest of enemies. Zack takes a moment to process the list, satisfied that his options are more varied than he expected. He notes they all start at F grade, which seems to be the baseline for everyone in this new world. The fact that they're all upgradable means this choice will define his future growth. He knows this is a massive decision, and he immediately decides to ignore the common grade Fighter and Acolyte options. In his mind, picking a common class when something rare is on the table would be a total waste. He considers Demon Hunter, but he's worried that being too specialized early on could come back to haunt him. He doesn't like the idea of being useless if he runs into anything that isn't a demon. He needs a path that will let him take on any threat the world throws at him, from bugs to monsters. Marine is an easy pass. He has no interest in getting stuck on a boat in the middle of nowhere. That leaves him with only one real choice that makes sense for his survival. He believes the system rewards those who take the biggest risks, and Hatchetman is the rare reward he's earned. He wonders if it will lock him into only using axes, but given his current gear, that doesn't seem like much of a problem. Zack chuckles to himself, realizing that choosing a rare class isn't just a smart move, it's a major perk for his survival. He grips the glowing Nexus node, feeling the raw power vibrating through the crystal and into his bandaged hands. Hatchetman, he declares firmly, his eyes burning with intensity as a brilliant flash of light signals his commitment. The system chiming in confirms his new identity, permanently binding him to the F-Rare Hatchetman class. Notifications begin to flood his vision, awarding him the titles of Full of Class and Rarefied Being, each boosting his core stats. A final notification stuns him. He's been named the world's first Trailblazer, a title that grants a massive 5-point increase to every single stat. His body erupts with golden electricity, the raw energy of the stat boosts coursing through his muscles and veins. He grinds his teeth against the overwhelming sensation, feeling his physical limits being forcibly expanded by the system's power. As the system lists his across-the-board increases, Zack collapses to his knees, his body struggling to adapt to the sudden influx of power. He stays down for a moment, steam rising from his overheated skin as he pants heavily, trying to catch his breath. He looks up, one eye glowing with a predatory yellow light, as he realizes just how far ahead of the rest of the world he's managed to pull. He pulls up his status screen, eyes widening as he sees his strength stat has skyrocketed to an incredible 92. He stares at his hands in disbelief, calculating that his strength alone just jumped by 28 points in a single moment. He flexes his bandaged arm, and the resulting swell of muscle is enough to snap the air with raw, unbridled physical force. A cold, dangerous smile plays across his lips as he prepares to dive deeper into his new capabilities. He opens his class menu and is greeted by a list of powerful-looking skills, though each one is frustratingly locked behind a combat trial. Zack sighs, standing tall as the golden sparks continue to dance around him. Even with a rare class, the system isn't giving him anything for free. He tightens his grip on his axe, accepting that he'll have to kill thousands more enemies if he wants to master his new path. His silhouette stands dark against the forest, as he vows to show the invaders that there's a demon on this world far more terrifying than them. With 2 of the 5 required kills already under his belt, Zack turns his focus to the remaining heralds and their general. To the demons, this incursion isn't a tragedy, it's the opportunity of a lifetime. Sure, things almost went south thanks to that screw-up Ogres, but the clan's finally putting better people in charge. Kevorin is one of those people, and he's clearly enjoying the perks of his new position. While the monsters he brought along do the dirty work of clearing out the island, he's just sitting back and watching the show. He honestly thinks there's nothing on this island that can touch him. Meanwhile, Zack is out in the woods, looking less like a threat and more like a guy just trying to get some chores done. Kevorin's busy complaining about the month of prep time they lost because of the general's tactics. He knows they need to hurry up before the other incursions across the planet start grabbing all the good stuff. But hey, sacrificing 10,000 slaves seems to have paid off in the eyes of the heavens. Kevorin's got that look on his face like he just won the lottery. His scouts just checked in with some news that makes everything worth it. Deep in the mountains, they found a massive vein of Nexus crystals. A stash like that is worth more than most people can wrap their heads around. It's more wealth than many of the clan elders have to their names. As the master of scouts, Kevorin's the guy in charge of finding this treasure. And he's got a little secret. Not every shiny thing he finds is going back to the home office. He's feeling so good he tells his subordinates to start setting up camp because he's tired of walking. He finds a scenic overlook at sunset and asks Kayla what she thinks, but she's still just trying to get used to the planet's weird weather. Gormer gets a full dining table ready, complete with cakes and a red tablecloth. Kevorin invites Kayla to join him, telling her to drop the formalities and just call him by his name. Kayla's a bit surprised he's taking a lunch break right at the start of a major invasion. Kevorin just flicks away a bug like it's beneath his notice. He claims he always makes time for the things that really matter in life. But he quickly gets annoyed when more gnats start buzzing around his fancy meal. He spent a lot of effort convincing Kayla to finally join him on this trip, and he doesn't want it ruined. When a fly lands right on the food, he snaps at Gormer to do something about the pests. He calls for Gormer again, but the silence makes him pause. Suddenly, Kayla gasps and reaches for an arrow. The vibes just did a complete 180. Out of nowhere, Zack drops in and paints the ground with the guard's blood. Kayla screams that it's a native as Kevorin jumps up, his hand glowing with energy. Kevorin screams for her to kill him as a projectile whistles through the air. But Zack is already moving, his hand reaching for another blade to finish the job. He follows up the hit, moving way faster than any human should be able to. Kayla's arrow gets swatted out of the air like it was nothing. Kevorin draws a massive black sword and prepares to end this bug once and for all. The impact between the sword and Zack's axe sends blue sparks flying everywhere. Metal grinds against metal as they lock eyes in the middle of the chaos. Kevorin just smirks, seemingly amused that there are actually humans on this planet worth fighting. He talks big about squashing them like all the other insects that infest this planet. But Zack is pushing back hard, even as dark energy starts swirling around them. Gormer watches in shock as the native actually holds his own against Kevorin. The two demons lunged at him, trying to overwhelm him with numbers, but Zack managed to leap out of harm's way just in time. Zack wasted no time, delivering a devastating punch that sent Gormer meeting his ancestors in a heartbeat. The impact was so massive it sounded like the demon's armor was about to shatter into pieces. He's sent skidding back across the ground from the sheer force of the rebound. The air itself seems to crack as the magical feedback from the demon's armor explodes. Gormer slammed into the ground in agony, the impact knocking the wind out of him and causing him to black out instantly. Kevorin doesn't waste a second, lunging forward with a strike that shatters the earth where Zack was just standing. He's genuinely confused how a native is even keeping up with him. Zack grips his axe tighter, the wood groaning under the pressure as he prepares for the next round. Dark energy began to coil around Kevorin, his power surging as he realized he was in deep trouble, with Zack's axe already swinging down from behind his back. A surge of amplified dark energy from Kevorin arced through Zack, forcing a scream of pure agony from his throat. While he's distracted, a purple-fletched arrow whistles through the air from the sidelines. The arrow finds its mark, burying itself deep in Zack's shoulder. He's gasping for air, the combination of the shock and the wound starting to take its toll. Kevorin towers over him, his blade raised high for the killing blow. Zack looks up, his eyes widening as he realizes just how much trouble he's in. But he manages to get his own blade up just in time, sparks flying as the two weapons lock. Kevorin can't believe it. This world was only integrated a month ago, so how is this guy this strong? Zack reaches out, his hand lunging for the demon's throat. He gets a grip on Kevorin's head, the demon letting out a strangled cry. Zack's hand is a vice, his raw strength shocking the noble scout. He swings his axe in a wide arc, aiming to end the fight right here. But Zack realized he wouldn't be able to end this fight as long as that woman on the sidelines kept harassing him with her relentless arrows. Zack froze his assault, tilting his head just in time to feel the arrow graze his cheek. He knew that even a split second of losing focus on the demon in front of him would allow those arrows to claim his life. Zack leaps back to create some distance, his breath coming in ragged bursts. He wipes the blood from his face, never taking his eyes off his opponent. The two of them stand there for a second, catching their breath under the red-tinged sky. Gormer is still clutching his gut in the background, clearly out of the commission. Kevorin admits that Zack is actually pretty impressive for a mere human. He says he's heard of humans who managed to claw their way up from the bottom. The rejects and the trash who weren't even supposed to survive the integration. Those who were deemed too weak to even begin the path of cultivation. Small and insignificant, like the gnats Kevorin hates so much. A broken axe lies abandoned in the dirt, a reminder of the many who didn't make it. Kevorin explains that people like Zack are ones who fight until the heavens themselves have no choice but to acknowledge them. Zack stands there, surrounded by the system's prompts, the first human to truly push back. They call them defiers, individuals who spit in the face of fate. And apparently, Zack has more potential than most of them. Kevorin says it's almost a shame that someone like Zack has to die here. But since Zack is defying him, he has no choice but to bring down the hammer. He swings his massive blade in a horizontal arc, forcing Zack to duck for his life. Zack skids across the rocky ground, trying to stay out of reach of that dark energy. He throws himself forward, his axe clanging against Kevorin's armor one more time. Zack grinds his teeth, knowing that one more mistake will be his last. Zack's axe slams into Kevorin's chest, but the impact creates a massive shockwave that fails to move the demon. Kevorin stands completely unfazed, his ornate armor glowing as it absorbs the brunt of the blow. Zack is thrown back by the magical feedback, skidding across the rocky terrain and cursing the demon's superior gear. Refusing to stay down, Zack charges forward again with a roar, while Kevorin prepares a deadly counterstrike. As the demon lunged forward, Zack thought fast, grabbing the entire banquet table and hurling it right into the demon's face, throwing off his rhythm and sending him into a blind rage. The demon's face twists in sudden anger and confusion as he realizes this human isn't going down easily. A heavy impact sends Kevorin stumbling back through the ruins of his own camp, debris flying everywhere. Dazed, Kevorin struggles to process how a native can keep up with a noble scout from the demon world. Zack continues his relentless assault, closing the distance before Kevorin can regain his footing. Zack's swing connected squarely with the demon's chest. The sheer force of the axe slamming into the leader's armor sent him flying backward with bone-shattering momentum. Seeing his commander in peril, Azan cries out in alarm as the battlefield is engulfed in smoke. A massive crash echoes through the clearing as the magical blast levels a nearby tree. Kevorin snaps at Azan to stay focused, but the brief moment of distraction is all the opening Zack needs. Looming out of the dust cloud like a vengeful shadow, Zack brings his weapon down in a lethal arc. Kevorin's eyes widened in sheer terror, cold sweat pouring down his forehead as he witnessed the brutal death of his subordinate. Zack slams his axe into the earth with bone-shattering force, the impact vibrating through the entire clearing. Without missing a beat, Zack leaps into the air, his movements a blur of focused aggression. He tackles Kevorin with a savage yell, the two of them crashing into the dirt in a tangle of limbs. They grapple on the ground, each combatant fighting for the leverage needed to deliver a final blow. Kevorin gained the upper hand, but Zack fought back by digging his fingers into Kevoran's face with a primal, savage intensity. He clenches his hand with a guttural growl, Kevoran's cries of pain muffled by the crushing grip. Desperate, Kevoran screams for Kayla to shoot Zack, indifferent to his own safety in the face of death. Kevoran draws a small blade with a sharp sheathing, the steel glinting with a cold promise. With a brutal thrust, he drove the blade straight into Zack's side, pinning the protagonist to the ground. Zack's agonizing scream rang out, making the demon believe that victory was finally within his grasp. Demon blood gushed from Kevoran's eyes, but he didn't give a damn. His eyes were locked on a single goal, finishing off the mortal pinned beneath him. A sudden discharge of energy from Kevoran's armor jolts through Zack, causing him to stagger back. Zack's hand pats the ground, searching for his primary weapon as he recovers from the shock. Kevoran, though drenched in blood, continued to mock Zack with a crazed laughter, sneering if this was really the extent of a defier's power. Zack's hand finally closes around the handle of his axe, his resolve hardening with every breath. From above, the demon sneered, intoxicated by his perceived advantage. His face was a mask of hollow arrogance, completely oblivious to the fact that they were both teetering on the edge of a deadly stalemate. Zack silences him forever with a final, crushing blow as a level up notification flashes in the corner of his vision. The battle is over, leaving Zack gasping for air amidst the corpses of his fallen enemies. He tries to stand, but the arrows in his shoulder and his sheer exhaustion cause him to stumble. Kayla emerges from the shadows, her bow drawn and aimed directly at Zack's head. The demon archer stands cold and ready, her eyes promising a swift end for the human intruder. Zack is hit with another arrow, the impact forcing a cry of pain as he struggles to stay upright. He seethes with a quiet rage, his eyes burning with a defiance that refuses to be snuffed out. Kayla warns him to remain still, her grief for Kevoran fueling her desire for vengeance. Zack looks back at her, his expression grim as he prepares for whatever comes next. And just like that, with a quick-cut transition, the dagger's location shifted from Zack's ribs straight into the center of Kayla's forehead. As Zack's adrenaline began to fade, it left behind nothing but the excruciating agony of his wounds. Despite the danger, Zack begins to loot Kevoran's body, hoping to find some gear that will help him survive the next encounter. Zack examines the small, ornate pouch he retrieved from Kevoran's body, nodding its unexpected weight. As he opens the bag, a surge of magical energy erupts, bathing him in a warm, golden glow. Looking inside, he realizes it's a spatial artifact containing a vast, disorganized assortment of items. The bag seems to defy physics, holding an entire room's worth of goods within its small frame. Zack finds everything from baskets of fruit to fine furniture, making him wonder if the demon was on a picnic. Among the domestic clutter, he discovers a collection of glowing, multicolored crystals that feel significant. A system prompt identifies them as F-grade Nexus crystals, dense with raw cosmic energy. The interface explains that these crystals are essential for leveling up and recuperating after a battle. Holding one aloft, Zack can feel the raw power vibrating within the gem, like a miniature star in his palm. He checks his active quests, seeing similar crystals listed as rewards for his ongoing struggle against the incursion. Zack begins to absorb the crystal's energy, his body drinking in the power to heal the wounds from the fight. Half an hour later, Zack has scavenged the best of Kevoran's gear, securing the dark, magical armor for himself. He fastens the valuable spatial pouch to his belt, a significant prize from his first major victory. A grim, satisfied smile crosses his face as he assesses his new equipment, feeling far more prepared. Though he stands fully armored in the demon's spoils, he decides Kevoran's massive sword is too cumbersome to use. Zack stares down at the enemy stronghold, his eyes locked on the target. He knows the general is in there somewhere. The outpost is a massive fortress, marked by a pillar of red light that pierces the sky. It's a constant reminder of the invasion. He crouches low in the brush, watching the perimeter. If they want an invasion, he's happy to give them a taste of their own medicine. Panic erupts at the gate as demon soldiers scramble to respond. They've finally noticed the mess Zack left for them outside. The guards are clueless, rushing blindly toward the source of the chaos. They can't even fathom what's actually hitting them. A squad of reinforcements dashes through the portal, swords drawn. They're hopping to find an army, but there's only silence waiting. The lead soldier skids to a halt, his bravado instantly evaporating. The scene ahead is worse than any report. He looks around in disbelief. The brutal efficiency of the slaughter leaves him speechless. Corpses litter the ground, twisted and broken where they fell. It's a grim testament to Zack's power. Zack retreats into the shadows, his breathing heavy. His axe mastery is climbing, but a direct assault on the general is still suicide. He looks down at his own body, covered in grime and dried blood. Brute force isn't going to get him through those gates. Every inch of him is battered. If he tries to kick down the door now, he'll be shredded before he even sees the general's face. With thousands of demons on the island, he needs a new plan. Whittling them down one by one will take forever. He shifts his gaze to the mountain. There's a constant stream of demons moving between the outpost and a cave higher up. Whatever they're doing up there can't be good. It looks like they're scouting or mining for something vital. While a few wander off, the bulk of their forces stay behind the walls, busy building up their new city. Zack watches them from the darkness. He wonders if they're just mindless creations of the system sent here to test him. But as they laugh and joke among themselves, the reality sinks in. They aren't just NPCs, they're real living beings. He catches himself wondering if they even want to be here. Maybe they're just as trapped in this game as he is. His eyes harden as he pushes those thoughts aside. It doesn't matter who they are or what they feel. They are on his island, desecrating his home. Sympathy has no place in a war for survival. The only way he's going to talk to these invaders is through the edge of his axe. That's the only diplomacy they'll understand. He leans against a tree, steadying himself. He still has a family to find and a world to reclaim. If he has to become a monster to save his people, so be it. He's already crossed that line. He decides to shift targets. Hunting down the remaining heralds will weaken the general's grip before the final showdown. Once they're dead, he'll come back for the head of the invasion. He turns and disappears into the woods. Tracking them down isn't easy. He spends days traversing the island, checking every corner and high point. He continues his grim work, his axe mastery slowly ticking upward with every kill, nearly 200 down. His hunt takes him to the jagged coast, where he slaughters everything in his path. The count keeps rising. He scours the small, cramped caves, leaving a trail of bodies behind him. He's almost halfway to his goal. Zack pulls himself up a steep rock face, his muscles screaming with the effort. They have to be hiding somewhere. He finally reaches the summit, the wind whipping at his cloak. The climb was worth the view. He takes a moment to breathe and wipe the sweat from his brow. He was just looking in the wrong places before. From up here, the entire island is laid out before him. The red beam of the outpost feels small from this height. A flicker of movement catches his eye. He narrows his gaze, focusing on a nearby ridge. A massive beast is perched on a branch, its body cracked with glowing orange energy. It looks ancient and dangerous. Zack steps into the clearing, drawing its attention. He's found what he was looking for. The stone monkey lets out a deafening roar as Zack uses his eye of discernment to scan its stats. It's part of the Azrazak clan. Finally, he's confirmed that the last two heralds are an imp and a pack of these monkeys. It's time to get to work. The creature screams again, its mouth glowing with fiery heat. It's not alone. A whole pack of the beasts comes charging down the ravine, their heavy footsteps shaking the earth. Zack doesn't hesitate. He launches himself forward, meeting the first of the monsters head-on. A single, powerful strike sends the monkey flying. Zack's mastery level is skyrocketing with every swing. He cleaves through another, the counter hitting 899. He's closing in on a massive milestone, and he can feel the change coming. Zack pauses as the last beast falls. These stone monkeys are territorial. That's why he hasn't seen them until now. If he wants to find the next herald, he'll have to push even further into the heart of the mountains. High-pitched screeches echo through the ravine. More of them are coming, and they sound pissed. He spins around as another shadow looms over him. It never ends. A whole pack of the creatures comes crashing down the cliffs, their heavy forms shaking the ground. They roar in unison, a wall of stone and fury charging straight for him. They really don't like visitors. Zack tightens his grip and readies his axe. He's more than ready to see what these apes are really made of. He's been fighting non-stop since the system arrived, trapped in a cycle of blood and steel. He tears through the first wave, the counter ticking past 900. The mindless violence is starting to feel like second nature. At first, the system made no sense to him. It was just numbers and death. 921-1000, he's so close he can taste it. His mind drifts to his friends and family. Is there anyone left in the world he once knew? 939-1000. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that the old world is gone. There's only the hunt now. The more he fights, the more the pieces start to fall into place. He's becoming something else. Every kill brings him closer to a truth he can't quite grasp yet. 982-1000, just 18 more. The numbers keep climbing as he cleaves through the remaining monkeys. 995-996-997. The air feels heavy with anticipation. Finally, the fabric of the multiverse begins to make sense. It's all connected. 998-1000. His enemies are like an endless forest, and he is the woodsman tasked with clearing it. 999-1000. One more. A massive flash of light erupts as he hits the cap. 1001-000. He's done it. 1000 axe mastery. The world around him dissolves into a blinding white void. This isn't the mountain anymore. Zack finds himself standing on a floating island, a majestic white city rising before him. He's in a vision. He looks down from the cliff edge, his eyes wide with shock. This is beyond anything he's ever seen. Below him, an impossible army of stone colossi and winged warriors marches through the clouds. It's a sight from a legend. Each soldier radiates an aura of overwhelming power. He's just a bug compared to this. Zack stares, paralyzed by the scale of it all. He can feel the raw energy vibrating through the air. A figure appears in the center of the island, a man standing calmly amidst the chaos. It's a bald man in humble robes, holding a simple iron axe. He looks like a simple woodcutter, but his presence is immense. The mysterious lumberjack takes a deep breath, his focus narrowing down to a single point. He's preparing for something. He lifts the axe high above his head, purple lightning crackling around his body as he channels a terrifying power. With a single, slow downward swing, he strikes. The motion is deliberate, carrying the weight of the entire world. The world shatters. A massive fissure of purple energy tears through the sky and the land, splitting the reality itself. Zack watches, speechless. This wasn't just a swing, it was a fundamental law of the universe being rewritten. The shockwave ripples through the vision, throwing everything into chaos. The sheer force of it is incomprehensible. The message from the system flashes in his mind. Dao Seed gained heaviness. He's achieved a breakthrough. The vision explodes in a final burst of light, and Zack is slammed back into the real world. A massive crater is left where he stood. Zack gasps for air, his hands trembling as he grips his axe. The power he just saw is still coursing through his veins. He looks at the ravine he just created with his next strike. The mountain itself has been split open by his new power. He slumps against a tree, his body completely exhausted. Around him lie the shattered remains of the monkey pack. The Dao, he's heard of it in legends and myths, but he never thought it could be something real, something he could touch. The system confirms his new status, Dao Seed of Heaviness, a permanent boost to his strength and endurance. This changes everything. He doesn't fully understand what it means yet, but the feeling of power is undeniable. He's no longer just a survivor. Zack grips his axe, the energy of his breakthrough pulsing through his arms. It feels like he's finally glimpsed a fundamental truth of the multiverse. In his mind's eye, he sees the mysterious lumberjack again. The weight behind that man's attacks was something transcendental. He realizes his previous technique was flawed. Compared to the vision, his own swings felt like mere illusions, while the lumberjack's was the only thing that was real. Zack centers himself, trying to channel that same essence. He needs to feel the absolute heaviness behind the swing. He focuses every ounce of his new understanding, imbuing the concept into his next attack. With a thunderous crack, a massive fissure tears through the earth, obliterating the stone monkeys in its path. The sheer force is terrifying. Zack stands over the carnage, gasping for breath. Despite the power of that strike, he knows he's only scratched the surface. The man in the vision had something even greater. The memory of the lumberjack strike splitting the world lingers. There was a depth to it that he still can't grasp. Zack looks at his reflection in the axe blade, his eyes filled with a new, burning ambition. Can he ever reach that level of strength? The mysterious lumberjack remains a silent, stoic goal in his mind, a benchmark for what is possible. A system message appears, bearing a title that stops him cold. Child of Tao, third in the world to attain enlightenment and create a Tao seed. Zack's eyes widen as the word sinks in. Third, he isn't the first, there are others ahead of him. He thinks of the world beyond his island. The tutorial ended for everyone else a month ago. Out there, the muscular survivor and others are likely fighting their own battles. He wonders how many natural geniuses, like the blonde survivor, are perfectly suited for this new world of cultivation. Our government's already rebuilding, our organized groups already claiming territory while he's stuck here alone. The thought gnaws at him. He's pushed himself to the limit, believing he was at the forefront. Knowing he's been bested by two others hurts his pride. He checks his status. Level 28, Tao, Seed of Heaviness. His strength and endurance have surged, but it's not enough. Looking out over the ruined mountainside, Zack resolves to push even harder. When the dust finally settles, only the strong will decide the fate of the New World Order. Zack narrows his eyes, checking his progress on the system interface. He's been so busy staying alive that he almost missed his current count. 9,952 logs out of 10,000. Zachary Atwood takes a quick breather, leaning back against a massive fallen trunk. He's just a few chops away from hitting his goal. Meanwhile, deep inside the demon base, the weapon racks stand ready for a war that's already claiming lives. Agras, one of the demon leaders, looks stunned by the latest update. A messenger reports that Kevoran is dead, likely taken out by the same mysterious group that killed their other heralds. Agras struggles to keep a serious face, as the soldier suggests they're dealing with a team of elite native warriors. As soon as he's behind his massive guard, Ilver, he can't help but wheeze with laughter. He's thrilled his rival is finally gone. He plays it off as a cough, claiming he must be allergic to something in the planet's atmosphere. He admits it's a shame he lost Kayla in the chaos since she was spying on Kevoran for him, but he isn't losing any sleep over it. He orders a squad to check on Cindermane and Quigo, maintaining his role as the concerned commander. Secretly, he's just hopping the natives, and his remaining rivals wipe each other out so he can take total control. Ilver warns him that he's smiling way too much again, but Agras just tells him to shut up. Back in the forest, Zack is back at it, bringing his log count up to 9,999. He wipes the sweat from his face, focusing on the very last task at hand. He lines up his axe for the final swing. The counter hits 10,000, and a violent surge of energy erupts from the log. Purple lightning coils around him as his body absorbs the cosmic reward, pushing his power to a whole new level. With his stats boosted, he heads toward the high peaks where the concentration of energy is even stronger. He begins the vertical climb, his fingers digging into the jagged rock. He scales the cliff face with ease, his body feeling lighter and stronger than ever. Reaching a stable ledge, he looks down and spots a group of creatures gathering below. He gives them a shout to announce his presence, and they look up in unison. A pack of stone monkeys lets out a series of screeches and charges straight toward the mountain. Zack doesn't move. He's been itching to see what his new power can actually do. He clenches his fist around his axe, and the blade begins to hum with a brilliant, shimmering light. The monkeys launch themselves through the air, closing the gap in a single, massive leap. Zack winds up, cosmic energy gathering around his arms as he prepares to strike. He whispers his primary skill, Chop. The axe head glows white-hot and expands as it slices through the air. A massive shockwave tears across the cliffside, obliterating the forward pack in an instant. The survivors are blasted backward, their bodies unable to handle the sheer force of the blow. He keeps climbing, convinced that these mountains are hiding something far more important than a few rock apes. He's sure of it, the energy in the atmosphere is getting way too thick to be natural. The peaks above are shrouded in a strange, glowing mist that pulses with power. The creatures up here are different, too, stronger, more disciplined, and acting like a coordinated guard. Watching from the rocks, he realizes these monkeys remind him of the humanoid demons he's already faced. They move in tight, organized packs, patrolling the area with purpose. Each group seems to have a larger commander leading them through the terrain. He continues his sweep, leaving a trail of shattered stone in his wake. Even these elite squads can't stop him now. Days pass as he scales one peak after another, searching every corner of the mountain ring. At sunset, he stands alone at a summit. He's cleared the area, but the next herald is still nowhere to be found. Zack narrows his eyes, focusing on the view below. He's spent days searching the peaks, but he finally realizes he was looking in the wrong place. The herald isn't at the top of the mountain. He looks down into a massive crater and spots a glowing, white-blossomed tree. That's where the power is concentrated. Without a second thought, he steps off the edge and begins his descent toward the valley floor. As he gets closer, he stays alert, his mind racing through potential strategies. But then he stops dead in his tracks, feeling a massive spike in energy. The tree is even more impressive up close, pulsing with deep purple and red cosmic veins. He can't believe the scale of the thing. It looks like it's been growing here for centuries. And then he sees him, Cindermane, a level 58 stone monkey herald, sitting in total silence at the tree's base. The beast is huge, with dark purple skin and a brilliant red mane that gives him his name. He looks like a statue, completely still as he meditates under the glowing branches. But the peace doesn't last long. His eyes snap open, glowing with a dangerous yellow light. Zack doesn't waste time and initiates a surprise strike from the air, bringing his massive axe down with everything he's got. But the herald is faster. He catches the enchanted blade with his bare hands, the force of the impact cracking the ground beneath them. Zack is stunned. He's never seen anything just catch his axe like that. Cindermane lets out a low growl, his grip like a vice on the metal blade. The beast's gaze is predatory, showing zero fear of the human's weapon. Suddenly, a burst of energy flares from the herald, forcing Zack to brace himself. Zack realizes he's in over his head. His axe is stuck, and he's losing his leverage. With a single, explosive shove, Cindermane sends him flying backward. Zack skids across the rocky crater floor, digging his heels in to stop his momentum. He admits this guy is the real deal. Even with his strength tripled since his last boss fight, he's still being pushed around. He tightens his grip on the handle. Between his new class and his Dao Seed, he should have the edge, but this monkey is built different. Looking at his opponent, he knows this fight is going to be 10 times harder than his battle with Vul. He takes a measured step forward, resetting his stance. Cindermane matches his movement, his own footsteps heavy and deliberate. Zack launches himself into a dash, his speed a blur as he closes the distance. The herald doesn't wait for him to arrive and charges head-on into the fray. The beast stomps the ground, channeling cosmic energy into the very earth. Massive jagged rock spikes erupt from the crater floor, aiming straight for Zack's chest. The stone cracks and groans under the pressure of the herald's magic. Zack reacts instantly, his axe becoming a streak of light as he cleaves right through the obstacles. He jumps over the remaining debris, his eyes locked on his target. He comes down from above again, but Cindermane is already moving to meet him. They clash in midair, a violent collision of raw power and steel. Zack swings with enough force to level a building, his focus entirely on breaking the herald's guard. But Cindermane is a wall of muscle, deflecting the heavy strikes with his armored forearms. Zack launched a counterstrike, delivering a heavy blow that put the herald's endurance to the ultimate test. A spray of blood hits the air as a shallow cut opens up on Zack's arm. The fight is getting messy, with red droplets splattering against the dark wood of the tree. They trade a dozen blows in a heartbeat, blocking, dodging, and striking in a frantic dance of death. The white blossoms of the energy tree are now stained with blood as the battle intensifies. Zack launches into a high-speed dash, a blur of movement against the crater wall. He and Cindermane clash again, their movements so fast they leave trails of light in the air. Zack notices something. The beast isn't just fighting. He's repositioning himself to stay between Zack and the glowing tree. A dark grin spreads across Zack's face as he realizes the monkey's fatal flaw. He doesn't even need to aim for the herald. He just has to target his precious tree. Zack puts everything into a massive overhead swing, banking on the beast's protective instincts. Just as he hoped, the herald throws himself into the path of the blade, taking the full force of the strike to his own back to save the trunk. Zack leans into the blow, his eyes glowing with a predatory intensity. He mocks the beast's desperation, thrilled that his gamble to force a direct hit worked perfectly. The axe bites deep into the herald's flesh, drawing a pained, guttural scream that echoes through the valley. Even with the blade buried in his shoulder, Cindermane's fingers claw at the metal, his grip vibrating with pure agony. Zack can't help but respect the herald's resolve. The beast knows exactly what's at stake and is willing to die for it. But respect doesn't mean mercy. Zack pushes harder, the energy of the clash creating a blinding flare. The sound of sizzling flesh and grinding bone fills the air as the herald struggles to stay upright. With a final, ear-piercing roar, Cindermane calls out to the mountains surrounding them. The sound carries for miles, a haunting signal that rings through the jagged peaks. Zack's heart sinks. He knows that scream, it's a call for reinforcements, just like the ones the lesser stone monkeys used. Before he could deliver the finishing blow, a rock flew out of nowhere and slammed into Zack's head, sending him reeling. Zack tumbles violently across the rocky ground, his momentum finally coming to a halt near the edge of the crater. He staggers to his feet, blood dripping from a fresh gash on his forehead. This was his best chance, and he's losing it. He knows that if he retreats now, he might never get another shot at taking on a herald one-on-one. But as he looks up, the horizon is filled with a sea of stone-skinned monsters charging toward him. He curses under his breath. Charging back into that mess isn't brave, it's suicide. The ground begins to shake under the weight of hundreds of stone monkeys, their yellow eyes glowing like 1,000 tiny stars. Realizing the battle is lost for now, Zack turns and bolts toward the cover of the nearby cliffs. He knows he's in no condition to fight a war of attrition across the entire mountain range. Every step is a struggle, his body screaming in protest from the injuries he's already taken. The thundering footsteps of the horde are right on his heels, and his cosmic energy reserves are dangerously low. He spots a cave opening ahead and realizes the commotion he's caused has probably alerted every predator for miles. He ducks into the dark maw of the cavern, the sounds of the pursuit echoing off the stone walls. Zack skids to a halt, the dust of the cave floor kicking up around his boots. He looks back to see the first wave of the horde reaching the entrance, their roars filling the cramped space. He catches his breath, a wild, desperate plan forming in his mind. He knows it's a gamble, but it's the only one he has left. If he wants to live long enough to settle the score with the heralds, he has to change the rules of the game. He grips his axe handle tight, channeling the last of his energy into the blade. He needs a strike powerful enough to bring the whole place down. With a primal yell, he strikes the cave ceiling, the impact triggering a massive explosion of rock and dust. Huge boulders rain down, crushing the lead stone monkeys and sealing the entrance with a deafening crash. Zack stands in the darkness, wreathed in dust and shadow, as the cave-in settles and the roars of the horde are silenced. A massive explosion rocks the cavern, sending shockwaves through the dark. Tons of rock come crashing down as the mountain caves in, burying the monsters that were just giving chase. Zack Atwood stands firm as the dust settles, barely dodging the literal mountain falling on his head. He finds himself trapped in a small, sealed-off pocket of the cave, surrounded by darkness. The young man starts bandaging his wounds, frustrated that even with his new power, he's still getting pushed to the limit. He checks the pile of rubble, knowing at least one of the last two heralds is close by on the other side. He grunts as he pushes himself up, figuring this place has to connect to the demon mines he saw earlier. He grabs his axe and starts hiking through a narrow opening to find another way out. The path leads him deeper and deeper into the gut of the mountain. He steps into a wide-open chamber, glowing with a strange, bioluminescent blue light. Touching the cavern wall, he can feel the cosmic energy buzzing right through his palm. With energy this thick, he's certain the fourth herald is hiding somewhere in these depths. He continues his trek, scanning every shadow for any sign of his target. A sudden sound echoing from up ahead makes him freeze. He quickly hugs the rock wall, moving as silently as a ghost. Peeking around the corner, he spots something moving in the blue light. It's an imp. He knows if one of these little guys is here, their master is close. The creature cackles to itself, busy collecting glowing crystals from the cavern floor. He watches as the little scavenger hops along, completely oblivious to his presence. The imp stops for a moment, checking its surroundings with a wide grin. It's hoarding a pile of Nexus crystals, a resource far too valuable for a common monster. Zack is surprised to see these things even have a use for them, but it gives him an idea. He plans to follow the imp back to the source and find the Herald's hideout. But before he can move, a massive shadow lunges out from the dark. A giant cave lizard snaps its jaws shut, snatching the imp right out of the air. He just stares, his entire tracking plan literally getting eaten in front of him. The lizard is a behemoth, its body covered in bright, dangerous-looking spots. It swallows the poor imp whole in one disgusting, bloody gulp. Now the beast turns its yellow eyes toward the much larger meal standing in the tunnel. It charges with a violent hiss, launching itself straight at him. He doesn't blink. One clean, powerful axe swing splits the monster right down the middle. He lets out a long sigh, shaking the lizard's blood off his weapon. He reaches down to grab the Nexus crystals the imp was carrying. No sense in letting good loot sit in the dirt while he's down here. He starts scanning the ground for any other trace the little creature might have left. A faint, sickly green gas starts rising from the cavern floor. Zack covers his nose, nearly gagging on the absolute rot of the imp's stench. At least the smell is easy to follow. He just has to track the trail of rot through the tunnels. A sharp, rhythmic, metallic sound starts echoing from further ahead. It's the unmistakable sound of pickaxes hitting rock, distant but clear. He finds the source, a group of demons hard at work mining the walls. Zack's territorial side takes over. They're mining his Nexus crystals, and he isn't planning on sharing. Zack hears the guttural language of the demons echoing through the dark tunnel. He realizes they're a lot closer than he thought, and prepares himself for a fight. With nowhere left to hide, he decides it's time to take the initiative and strike first. He moves forward with light, careful steps, closing the distance between him and the voices. A group of purple demon miners trudges through the cave, exhaustion weighing heavy on their shoulders. They whisper among themselves, complaining about their overseer treating them like slaves. One of them waves off the caution of his buddies, thinking they're far enough away to speak their minds. He continues to lead them through the bioluminescent tunnels, still bitter about being accused of skimming crystals. He grins, planning to find a rich vein and actually keep a few for himself this time. Suddenly he stops, a cold sense of dread washing over him. His companions begin to tremble as they realize they aren't alone in the dark. Before they can even turn, Zack's axe comes down in a brutal, silent strike. The remaining miners can only stare in horror as their friend is cleaved apart in an instant. Panic takes over as Zack lunges for the next one, forcing them to scramble for their lives. Zack's eyes burn with an intense light, his face splattered with demonic blood. He stomps forward, the sound of cracking bone echoing through the silent cavern. A burst of energy follows his every move as he hunts down the survivors. He corners the red-haired miner, who can only let out a pained grunt as he's caught. A final, heavy thwack ends the struggle before the demon can even fight back. One miner tries to make a break for it, desperately hopping to reach the main chamber. He screams out a warning to his master, Quago, but Zack is already right on top of him. A blade pierces through his shoulder, pinning him against the rock wall with a dull thud. Zack leaps through the air, closing the gap with terrifying speed. The miner can only reach out one last time before his life is snuffed out. Another clean slash, and the mining tunnel falls silent once more. Zack lands in a puddle of blood, his boots making a soft splash in the absolute quiet. He exhales slowly, knowing that was a close call for his stealth operation. He checks the area, hoping he took them out fast enough to avoid sounding the alarm. He moves toward the light, his expression hardening as he approaches his goal. As he peeks into the next cavern, he realizes he's just stumbled into the heart of the enemy's operation. The chamber is massive, filled with imps and elite guards gathered around a glowing, toxic cauldron. Xerez and the Shield Demon Knight immediately spot the intruder, shocked to see a human has made it this far. The multi-eyed imps scurry around the bubbling pot, their faces twisting in confusion. Quago, the level 44 herald, rises from his robes, his 4 eyes fixing on Zack with murderous intent. Zack doesn't back down. He walks right into the center of the room, ready to end the incursion. The herald lets out a piercing scream, unleashing a torrent of purple energy. A massive blast of flames roars through the cave, turning the air into a literal oven. Zack slides across the stone floor, narrowly avoiding the brunt of the magical fire. He doesn't wait for a second attack, he dashes straight into the fray. His axe connects with the shield demon knight's massive plate, sending sparks flying with a loud clang. He puts his full weight into the strike, the heavy metal shield starting to groan under the pressure. His eyes gleam with absolute focus, searching for the one opening he needs to finish this fight. Zack narrowly avoids a swift strike as Xerez moves in for the kill. Quago shrieks for his assassin to finish the job, his four eyes wide with desperation. Zack doesn't hesitate, catching Xerez off guard and driving a blade home to remove the threat. Distraught by the loss of his guard, the herald screams and unleashes a violent wave of purple energy. Zack turns just in time to see the cavern fill with the herald's volatile power. He leaps high into the air, using the shield demon knight's massive frame as a springboard. The purple fire roars around him, threatening to consume him as he hangs in the air. He lands with a heavy thud, his mind racing as he realizes this isn't just ordinary fire. He watches Quago carefully, realizing the herald relies on distance just like the lesser imps. If he wants to win, he has to bridge the gap and force the demon into close-quarters combat. He dives through the flames, the heat crackling against his skin as he pushes forward. With a roar, Zack leaps toward the herald, his axe ready to deliver a finishing blow. The energy clash is blinding, sending out a massive shockwave that rattles the cavern walls. Zack sprints through the thick, swirling smoke, searching for any opening in the herald's defense. He realizes the herald is desperate enough to burn everything down, including itself. His eyes land on the green, bubbling cauldron, the toxic fumes making his head spin. Quago isn't finished yet, swinging his staff to unleash another concentrated blast. The explosion rocks the ground near Zack, sending debris flying in every direction. Zack pivots quickly, his movements becoming a blur as he evades the bombardment. Another boom echoes through the chamber as the herald's power continues to erupt. Zack grits his teeth, realizing he's been backed into a corner with no easy way out. He faces Quago head-on, the herald hovering over the cauldron like a twisted priest. The demon grins, his multi-eyed face twisting in a confident, chilling cackle. He unleashes a final, massive beam of purple flame intended to incinerate Zack where he stands. Quago's grin falters as he sees a golden glow emerging from the center of the inferno. Zack charges straight through the fire, the energy from his armor forming a protective barrier. He remembers the previous owner of this breastplate and the brutal battle it took to claim it. The armor possesses a unique ability designed to block and redirect powerful attacks. He realizes that the same defensive mechanism works just as well against magical flames. He erupts from the smoke like a shining meteor, his axe held high above his head. He descends with crushing force, his impact shattering the ground and sending up a cloud of dust. Zack stands tall, his hair completely singed away by the heat, but his resolve remains unbroken. He coughs violently, blood trickling from his mouth as his body feels the strain of the blast. The thick, acrid smoke continues to fill the air, stinging his eyes and lungs. He realizes the cauldron's fumes are starting to affect his focus and coordination. He sees the herald preparing to flee, attempting to fly into the darker recesses of the cave. Zack tightens his grip on his axe, refusing to let his target escape after coming this far. With a final, primal scream, he launches himself forward in one last desperate charge. He channels every remaining ounce of his energy into a single, devastating swing. He glares at the retreating demon, his eyes glowing with an unyielding, golden light. The axe sweeps through the air with a sudden, sharp snap that breaks the sound barrier. The blade bites deep, slicing through the herald with a clean, lethal efficiency. The herald's body hits the floor with a wet thud, and a system notification confirms another level gained for Zack. Zack drops to one knee, coughing violently as the toxic green fumes from the cauldron sear his lungs and a quest update flickers in his vision. Surrounded by the mocking cackles of lesser imps, He realizes he needs to escape the chamber before the smoke finishes what the herald couldn't. He tries to cover his face, but the acrid air is inescapable, clouding his vision and rapidly draining his strength. Straining against the growing numbness in his limbs, Zack focuses his remaining energy on the source of the poison. He realizes that if the cauldron isn't neutralized, the entire cavern system will become a massive, inescapable death trap. Nearby, the remains of the defeated herald sizzle on the floor as the ambient energy of the chamber begins to spiral out of control. A massive wave of purple energy roars through the cave, mixing with the thick, poisonous green fog. Zack forces himself to stand and takes a shaky step toward the exit, his silhouette flickering against the dying light of the portal. He stumbles through the haze, his vision swimming as the full effect of the inhaled poison takes hold of his body. His breath hitches and his knees buckle, his strength finally failing him after the intense and brutal battle. With a heavy thud, Zack collapses into the darkness of the tunnel, the green smoke swirling around his unconscious form.